My brother reached the bottom of page 3 and looked at me. From across the private dining room, nobody else would have noticed the change in his face. Ryan had the same smile he used when a restaurant forgot his reservation or a girlfriend asked a question he didn't want to answer. Pleasant, boyish, buying time. He lifted the sheets off the podium and tapped their edges together as if the rest of his toast might shake loose. It wouldn't. The last page was in my handbag, tucked between a lipstick I never wore and the receipt for our parents' anniversary cake. Ryan glanced at Dad. Dad made a small circling motion with one finger. Keep going. Then Ryan looked back at me. I had spent most of my life rescuing him from moments like that. I'd whispered names, supplied dates, invented excuses, warmed plates, signed cards, and once driven 40 minutes to bring him the dress shoes he had forgotten for our grandfather's funeral. This time I rested both hands on my bag. Ryan's eyes narrowed. Not angry yet, just surprised. He still hadn't understood that I knew exactly where the final page was. 6 weeks earlier, Dad announced the anniversary dinner while I was on my knees wiping gravy off his kitchen floor. The gravy had gotten there because he'd tried to carry the boat and his water glass in one hand so he wouldn't have to make 2 trips. Dad believed every second trip was evidence of poor planning, even when the first trip ended with gravy on a cabinet and a butter knife under the refrigerator. "Leave it, Claire," Mom said from the table. "It'll wipe up." "That's what I'm doing." I meant later. Later meant me, just after everyone had gone home. I rinsed the dish towel and stood. My mother, Linda, was arranging peas into a neat green line with her fork. Her right knee had been bothering her for almost a year, but she still sat with one ankle tucked behind the other like she was posing for a department store photograph. Dad sat at the head of the table cutting his roast into increasingly smaller pieces. Ryan's chair across from mine was empty. It was 6:42. Dinner had been at 6. Dad looked toward the front window. He said he was leaving. "At 5:45, I said. "He could have hit traffic. He lives 20 minutes away. You know that construction on Briar? The construction that ended in March?" Mom gave me the look she used when I was being factually unhelpful. I got Ryan's plate from the oven before the chicken dried into roof shingles. I'd covered it with foil and put a damp paper towel beneath it, because experience had made me inventive. Dad cleared his throat. "So, 40 years. Mom glanced at him. "For what?" "Our anniversary, Lynn. I know how long we've been married, Frank. I'm asking what you're about to volunteer me for." That made me laugh. Dad pointed his fork at her. "This is why we lasted. Suspicion." "Our anniversary is in 6 weeks, Mom said to me, as though Dad had not been involved in the conversation. I told him I don't want a fuss. "She doesn't want a fuss," Dad said, "but she'll be disappointed if there isn't one. I will be disappointed if you make me wear uncomfortable shoes." "So comfortable shoes. We have our first decision." The front door opened, followed by Ryan's voice calling, "If anybody asks, I was helping an elderly woman change a tire." Dad smiled before Ryan even entered the room. My brother came in carrying a bottle of red wine and wearing a navy blazer over a t-shirt. At 38, Ryan had gone slightly gray at the temples in a way that made strangers trust him with things. He sold commercial lighting systems, which meant he could explain the emotional advantages of a warehouse fixture and make you feel cheap for preferring the less expensive one. Mom looked at the bottle. "You remembered." Ryan kissed the top of her head. "I always remember." I had texted him that morning. "Mom likes the Cabernet with the cream label. Do not bring Merlot." He had replied with a thumbs up. Dad took the bottle and examined it. "Good man." Ryan's gaze flicked to me. For half a second I thought he might say something. Then he sat down and lifted the foil from his plate. "Still warm," he said. "You're a saint, Claire Bear. Saints get feast days. I get dishes. You want a feast day? Pick one. I'll send a card. You'll ask me which card to buy." He grinned because he thought I was participating. That was the trouble with Ryan. He wasn't cruel. Cruelty would have given me something solid to push against. He was funny, affectionate, and sincerely grateful every time I saved him. He just never let gratitude interfere with the next rescue. Dad told him about the anniversary dinner, as if they were business partners finalizing a deal. "Private room at Bellini's," he said. "Your mother's always liked it." "Bellini's?" Ryan pointed at Mom with his fork. "First date spot." Mom's face softened. "You remember that?" Everybody looked at Ryan. Ryan looked at me. I had made a photo book for their 30th anniversary. The first page had a picture of Bellini's with the words, "First date, 1984," in large gold letters. "Of course I remember," he said. Dad leaned back, pleased. "See? This is why we need both of you involved." Both of us involved meant I would make the dinner happen and Ryan would arrive wearing the right jacket. I sat down and finally took a bite of my own cold chicken. "What does involved mean?" "Nothing crazy," Mom said quickly. 25 people, Dad said at the same time. "Private dinner, maybe some old pictures, music from when we were dating." 25 people is a fuss, Mom said. "It's barely a commotion. Who are the 25? Dad began naming relatives. By the time he reached my mother's cousin Barbara, whom neither of them had seen in 4 years, the list was at 32. Ryan poured wine for everyone and said, "I can handle the music." "Can you?" I asked. "Yes." "Like you handled the playlist for Dad's retirement barbecue. That speaker was defective. You never charged it." "That's one theory." Dad cut in before the teasing could become evidence. "Ryan's got good taste. Let him do the music. I'm happy to let him." The speed of my answer made Ryan glance at me. Mom reached across the table and touched my wrist. "You're so good at this kind of thing, honey. You know everybody's little issues." Everybody's little issues included Aunt Denise refusing to sit near Uncle Paul after a disagreement about a lawnmower, Cousin Barbara claiming garlic caused heart palpitations while eating garlic bread, and Dad insisting he didn't care where he sat as long as it was where he could see the door. "I have a job," I said. Dad nodded solemnly. "Nobody's saying you don't." I managed a dental office with 2 hygienists, 3 dentists, and a receptionist named Kayla, who believed punctuation was hostile. On paper, I worked from 8 to 5. In practice, I spent my days negotiating with insurance companies and persuading adults that a 6-month toothache was not a surprising new development. My family considered this proof that I enjoyed making phone calls. "We'll all pitch in," Ryan said. "Delegate. Use me." "Okay. Call Bellini's tomorrow and ask about the private room." He reached for a dinner roll. "During business hours?" "That is generally when businesses answer. I'm on the road all day tomorrow." Dad waved a hand. "Claire, you're better with the details. Let Ryan focus on the atmosphere." "The atmosphere?" "The music," Ryan clarified. "Right. The air around my details." Mom pressed her lips together, hiding a smile. That tiny smile kept me from arguing. Mom and I had always shared humor like contraband. Dad and Ryan could fill a room with noise, but Mom could look at me over a burned casserole or a relative's strange comment and make me feel we were the only 2 people hearing the same frequency. I told myself that was worth something. After dinner, Ryan did carry plates to the sink. He stacked them so high that a fork slid between 2 bowls and landed in the disposal. "Don't turn that on," he said. "I wasn't planning to." "No, I'm just telling you because that could be dangerous. Thank God you were here." He leaned against the counter while I filled the sink. "Maya might come to the anniversary thing." "Might?" We've had a weird week. Ryan and Maya had been together for almost 2 years. I liked her, mostly because she was immune to his smile when he deserved resistance. She also made excellent deviled eggs and never called them her famous deviled eggs, which put her above half our extended family. "What happened?" I asked. "She says I don't show up." I looked at him. Emotionally, he added, "Ah. That reaction is why I don't tell you things. You tell me everything. You just don't enjoy the pause afterward." He stole a carrot from the serving bowl I was scraping into a container. "She thinks I'm too focused on work and I treat plans like they're optional. You were 42 minutes late tonight. That was work. You said you were changing a tire. That was obviously a joke. It was obviously an excuse wearing a joke hat. Ryan chewed the carrot and stared through the pass-through at Dad, who was trying to explain the television remote to Mom. Mom knew how to use it. She let him explain things when he was restless. "I do show up," Ryan said. There was something younger in his voice then, not manipulative exactly, bruised. I softened despite myself. "Then show Maya." "How?" "Start by asking her what showing up looks like to her." He nodded as if I had handed him a useful tool. "See, this is why I talk to you. That'll be $200. I'll put it on my tab. You don't have a tab? Then I'm way ahead." He kissed my cheek, picked up the wine Dad had praised him for bringing, and left without noticing it was supposed to stay with Mom. The next morning, I called Bellini's on my lunch break. By Wednesday, I had reserved the private room, corrected Dad's guest list, called Mom's sister, found a bakery that could reproduce the small pink roses from their original wedding cake, and started a shared spreadsheet nobody else opened. Ryan sent me 3 song suggestions. 2 had been released after our parents stopped dating and started paying a mortgage. Still, he had sent them. I gave him credit because that was another thing I did automatically. I rounded his effort up. For the next 2 weeks, the anniversary occupied every loose corner of my life. Place cards sat beside my coffee maker. Old photographs covered my dining table. Mom came over one Saturday with 2 plastic tubs from the basement and lowered herself onto my couch with a careful breath. "That knee is worse," I said. "It's fine. You made a sound. I'm 64. We make sounds. You're 63. Then I'm advanced." She had finally scheduled the replacement surgery for 3 weeks after the anniversary. I had already blocked out 2 vacation days, though we hadn't discussed what she would need. In our family, plans involving me often existed before the conversation did. Mom watched me sort photographs into decades. "You don't have to make everything perfect." "I'm not." "You alphabetized the guest allergies." "I grouped them." "Forgive me." I found a photograph of her and Dad outside Bellini's, both of them thin and startled by their own happiness. Dad had hair past his ears. Mom wore white boots and a red coat. She took it from me. He hated that coat. "He looks pretty happy near it. He was hoping I'd take it off." "Mom." "What?" "We were adults." She laughed, and I laughed with her, and for a while the dinner felt less like an assignment. It felt like a way of holding something that mattered. That evening, after Mom left, Dad called. "I need one more thing," he said. Of course he did. "Your mother deserves a proper family toast," he continued. "Something from you and Ryan. You've got the words, Claire." I looked at the photograph still lying on my table. "What kind of toast?" "The kind people remember," Dad said. "The kind that says who we are." I should have heard the danger in that. Instead, I pulled a blank notebook toward me and asked him to tell me again about the night he met my mother. "She was wearing that red coat," Dad said. "You've got the picture. And you hated it." I did not hate it. "She said you hated it." "I hated the boots. The coat was memorable." "Because she took it off?" There was a pause. "Your mother talks too much." I could hear the television behind him and Mom saying, "I can hear you, Frank." Dad lowered his voice anyway. "The point is, she walked into Bellini's and every man in the room turned around. Mom called. There were 4 men, and one was the waiter. I turned around," Dad said. "That's the important one. I wrote that down." Dad was not usually sentimental on purpose. His affection came disguised as maintenance. He filled Mom's gas tank before it was empty. He complained about the price of her preferred coffee while buying 3 cans when it went on sale. Every winter, he checked the weather stripping around the windows and acted personally betrayed by cold air. Trying to make him describe love was like asking a dog to explain why it slept beside one particular chair. "What did you notice first?" I asked. "The coat." "Besides the coat." "She was late." "Dad." "What?" "She was. Your Aunt Denise told her 7 because she knew Linda wouldn't get there until 7:30. In the background, Mom said, 'It worked.'" Dad laughed. It was a quiet laugh, softer than the one he used with company. "She sat down," he said, "and she stole an olive off my plate before she said hello." "I didn't steal it," Mom called. I asked with my eyes. "You didn't wait for an answer. You were staring at me. I assumed you were agreeable." I wrote that down, too. For almost an hour, I pulled their marriage out of him in fragments. The apartment with the radiator that clanged all night. The used Buick that stalled whenever it rained. Mom stretching one chicken over 3 dinners when Dad's hours got cut at the plant. Dad taking a second shift and leaving notes for her on the orange juice because they kept missing each other. The stories weren't grand. That was why they worked. "Remember the kitchen flood?" I asked. Dad groaned. "Don't put that in." "Why not?" "Because your mother has spent 27 years lying about it." "I danced," Mom said. "You slipped repeatedly while music was playing. I danced. I could see it even though I'd only been 8. Mom barefoot in ankle-deep water, twisting to an old Motown song while Dad swore beneath the sink. Ryan had stood on a chair pretending to direct cleanup. I had carried every towel in the house into the kitchen and wrung them into the bathtub until my hands hurt. That last part wasn't in the family version. "Put the dancing in," Dad said. People liked that story. I circled it. When we hung up, I had 6 pages of notes and a strange ache behind my ribs. My parents' marriage had always seemed permanent in the way a heavy table seemed permanent. You noticed the marks on it, complained when you bumped your hip against a corner, and trusted it to stay where it was. The stories reminded me that they had built it. Badly sometimes, stubbornly, together. I opened my laptop and typed, 40 years ago, our mother stole an olive from our father's plate. Then I deleted our. Then I put it back. The toast was supposed to come from Ryan and me. Writing in a shared voice felt like wearing one coat with 4 sleeves. Ryan and I did not remember the same family, even when we remembered the same events. In his stories, things happened around him. In mine, I could always see who cleaned up afterward. I texted him, "Dad wants a toast from both of us. I'm drafting. Send me 3 memories of Mom and Dad together that actually mean something to you." He replied 12 minutes later. "Kitchen flood, obviously." That one was already in my notes. 2 more. The typing dots appeared, vanished, and came back. Dad teaching Mom to drive stick? Mom already knew how to drive stick. She taught Dad. Even better story. I waited. He sent a photograph of a golden retriever wearing sunglasses. "Wrong thread," he wrote. I stared at the dog. Ryan? Working on it. By the following afternoon, he had not worked on it. I met with Bellini's event coordinator after work. Her name was Teresa, and she had the calm expression of someone who had watched many families celebrate milestones while quietly hating one another. The private room looked smaller than it did online. Burgundy carpet, cream walls, 12 round tables stacked against one side, and a brass chandelier shaped like an upside-down wedding cake. The place smelled like lemon polish and garlic. "We can seat 30 comfortably," Teresa said. "My father has invited 32. We can seat 32 uncomfortably. He'll call that intimate." She showed me linen colors while I checked the guest list. Mom would like ivory. Dad would see ivory and ask why we were paying for white. I chose ivory and decided not to tell him the word. "The speaker setup is here," Teresa said, pointing to a small podium near the windows. "Will there be speeches?" "1 toast. Short." "I'm aiming for under 6 minutes." She gave me an approving nod. Anything over 8 minutes, the servers start losing the will to live. I took a picture of the podium and sent it to Ryan. "This is where we'll do the toast." "Are you free Sunday to practice?" He responded immediately. "Can't. Maya thing." "What Maya thing?" "Relationship maintenance." That sounded like my phrasing. "Good. Monday? Sales dinner? Tuesday?" Possible. Possible wasn't a day, but I wrote it down anyway. Teresa and I walked through the menu. Dad had requested chicken piccata because Mom liked it, but Mom had separately told me she wanted eggplant parmesan. I ordered both. The cake needed to come through the side entrance. The restaurant would display the photographs if I supplied frames. Music could run through the house speakers if someone brought a phone with the playlist downloaded. I emphasized downloaded in my message to Ryan. He sent a salute emoji. On my way out, I stopped beside the podium. It was narrow, more like a music stand than a lectern. 2 people could stand near it, but not comfortably. I pictured Ryan and me shoulder to shoulder, passing the pages back and forth. He would rush the funny lines. I would have to mark where he should pause. It annoyed me that I was already solving a problem he had not yet agreed to help with. Mom called while I was driving home. "Did your father tell you about the slideshow?" "No." "Oh, Mom. He just thought a few pictures behind the toast might be nice." "Behind it, where?" "Bellini's doesn't have a screen." "Then forget I said anything. That technique has never worked." She sighed. "He saw one at the Mahoney anniversary. The one at the hotel ballroom with a projector? I told him it was different. And then he told you to ask me. He did not tell me. He mentioned that you're creative." "That's Dad telling you to ask me in cursive." Mom laughed, then inhaled sharply. "Your knee?" I turned wrong. "You need to stop pretending it doesn't hurt. I'm having surgery. In 9 weeks. 8. 3 weeks after the dinner, approximately." I tightened my grip on the steering wheel. "Have you talked to the surgeon's office about what you'll need at home? They gave me a packet. Did you read it?" I looked at it. "Looking and reading are different activities. You're starting to sound like your father." That was a low blow. "I'm sorry." She wasn't. I heard the smile in her voice. "I thought maybe you could come to the pre-op appointment," she said, "just so there are 2 sets of ears." "What day?" "Thursday the 17th, 10:30. I mentally rearranged the office schedule. Dr. Patel did implants on Thursdays, which meant we were usually drowning by 11. "I'll make it work." "I knew you would." She said it warmly, lovingly. I still felt something in me tighten. At home, I added her appointment to my calendar and found an email from Dad with the subject line, "Slideshow Ideas." The email contained 17 photographs, 4 of them blurry and one of a stranger's patio. I called him. "Who owns the patio?" "What patio?" "The last picture. That might be from the Henderson place." "Why is it in the anniversary slideshow?" I selected the whole folder. Just use what works. There it was. The family motto, just use what works. I stayed up until almost midnight scanning photographs. Ryan finally sent his other 2 memories at 11:48. Mom cutting Dad's hair during lockdown. And that time, they got locked out on New Year's and slept at our place. They had slept at my place. Ryan had been in Miami. I typed, "You weren't there." He responded, "I heard about it extensively. I should have been irritated." Instead, I laughed into my empty kitchen. He was impossible in a way that could still feel like company. On Sunday, Ryan and Maya came to my apartment for dinner. I had invited them because Ryan was more likely to complete a task if food surrounded it. Maya arrived carrying flowers and a loaf of bread from the bakery near her office. Ryan arrived carrying nothing but kissed my cheek and announced he had brought himself. "I was told there would be pasta," he said. "There might be. Depends how the slideshow discussion goes." Maya handed me the flowers. "I told him to buy wine." "I offered," Ryan said. "You drove past the store. It was on the left." Maya looked at me. "He says things like that as though roads are rivers." She was tall, with dark curls she wore piled loosely on her head and a direct gaze that made Ryan sit up straighter. That night there was a carefulness between them. They touched, but each touch seemed to check whether the other person was still there. While the sauce simmered, I opened my laptop at the kitchen island. "Pictures first," I said, "then food." Ryan leaned over the screen. "This one." He pointed to the photograph of Mom in the red coat outside Bellini's. "Already first," I said. "Great minds. Your father's story is the opening of the toast, too." Maya turned to him. "You're giving a toast?" "We are," Ryan said, nodding toward me. "Claire's writing it?" "We're collaborating." I looked at him. He gave me a quick, pleading smile. Maya noticed. Of course she noticed. "What have you contributed?" she asked. "The kitchen flood. Dad contributed that. I confirmed it." I closed the laptop halfway. "You could read the draft." "Absolutely. Tonight. Right now, you're standing here. The sauce doesn't require your supervision." Maya covered a smile with her hand. Ryan sighed dramatically and pulled the laptop toward him. He read the first page in silence. Without the constant performance, his face looked more like mine than I usually admitted. Same line between the eyebrows. Same habit of pressing our lips together when words landed too close. When he finished, he didn't make a joke. "This is good, Claire. It's rough." "No, it's really good." The compliment warmed me before I could stop it. He scrolled back to the beginning. "You should read the olive part. I'll do the kitchen flood. We can divide it after I finish. Send it to me when you're done," he said. "I'll practice." "Seriously?" Maya rested her hand against his back. For that moment, I believed him. "Dad called before we finished dinner. I let it ring once, twice, 3 times. "You gonna get that?" Ryan asked. "He can leave a message." All 3 of us looked at the phone until it stopped. 10 seconds later, mine rang again. I answered. "Is something wrong?" "I talked to Paul," Dad said. "He thinks the toast should mention Mom taking care of Grandma. That was Mom's mother. Uncle Paul wasn't involved. Still, family is family. Work it in. I already have 6 minutes. Make it 7. Across the table, Maya watched me. Ryan studied his plate. Dad continued, "And print a clean copy for the dinner." Big type. Ryan gets nervous reading small print. I waited for Ryan to correct him. He did not. "Ryan and I are splitting it," I said. Right. That's what I meant. One family toast." Dad said it as though one toast could have only one voice, and somehow I had already agreed to lend him mine. When I ended the call, Maya said, "Does he always call twice?" "Only when I don't answer the first time," I said. Ryan twirled pasta around his fork. "Dad's from a generation that believes phones are alarms. He knows I'll answer the second call. You do answer the second call. That doesn't make it less annoying. It makes it effective." Maya gave him a look. "You understand that isn't better, right? I understand lots of things that don't improve my behavior." He smiled at her. She didn't smile back. I reopened my laptop and turned it toward him. "Let's split the draft before you go." Ryan's eyes dropped to his plate. "Tonight?" "That's what I said. I thought you meant eventually tonight. There are 40 minutes between those concepts." Maya stood and started gathering dishes. "I'll clean up. You 2 work." "You're a guest?" I said. "I'm a guest who wants to see whether he'll survive 6 minutes of responsibility." Ryan pressed a hand to his chest. "I came here for a safe environment." "You know where you came wrong," she said. There was humor in it, but not enough. Ryan and I went through the toast line by line. He wanted the opening because it got an immediate laugh. I wanted it because Dad had told me the story. We compromised by having me begin, and Ryan interrupt with a line about the stolen olive. He took the kitchen flood story and the section about Dad's habit of leaving notes on the orange juice. I kept Mom stretching 1 chicken over 3 dinners because Ryan said the phrase lean years sounded like a diet plan when he read it. "We need an ending," he said. "I know. Something uplifting." "Thank God you're here. I mean a big finish. Glasses up, tears, maybe a callback to the olive. You want them to steal an olive together for 40 more years? See? That's why you're the writer." I stared at him. He laughed. "I'll think about it. You've said that before." And eventually, thoughts occur. Maya set a clean plate into the drying rack, harder than necessary. Ryan's attention shifted to her. "You okay?" "Fine." Nobody in the history of kitchens had ever meant fine while handling a plate that way. He went to help her, leaving me in front of the unfinished toast. I watched them speak quietly beside the sink. Maya's shoulders were tight. Ryan touched her elbow and she moved just enough that his hand fell away. I looked back at the screen. 40 years, 3 homes, 2 careers, 1 flooded kitchen. I deleted the sentence. The ending could wait. The rest of the anniversary could not. Dad added 4 guests without telling me, including a former coworker named Stu, whose wife had once accused Mom of deliberately serving her the smaller pork chop. Mom removed Stu, then called back the next morning and put him in again because Dad was sulking. Ryan rejected my first draft of the playlist because it contained too many songs about leaving. "They're from the 70s, I told him. "Everybody was leaving. It's an anniversary. We need commitment. You included go your own way. It has energy. It is a divorce with a drum solo. He removed it reluctantly. At work, Kayla started routing family calls to me because Dad had discovered the office number. Your father's online too, she said one Tuesday while I was trying to explain a denied crown to an insurance representative. Did he say it was an emergency? He said, put my daughter on. That's not an emergency. He sounded very sure. Dad wanted to know whether the restaurant could make shrimp cocktail even though it wasn't on the menu. I told him I would ask Teresa. He told me not to make a big thing of it, as if I had been planning to petition the city. When I returned to the insurance call, the representative had disconnected. Dr. Patel found me staring at the phone. Family? He asked. Is it that obvious? You make a different face when insurance companies hurt you. What face is this? More personal. I put Dad's request on my growing list. That Friday, I picked Mom up for her dress fitting. She came out of the house in the red coat from the photograph. I rolled down the passenger window. You still have it. It's vintage now. It was vintage when I was 12. You don't have to be rude just because I look fantastic. She did look fantastic. The coat was slightly faded at the cuffs, but the red made her skin look warm and her silver blonde hair brighter. She opened the car door slowly and lowered herself into the seat. You should use the cane, I said. The cane is ugly. The cane doesn't have feelings. Then it won't mind staying home. At the seamstress's shop, Mom tried on a deep green dress with soft sleeves and a skirt that moved around her knees without clinging. She stood on the fitting platform while a woman named Celeste pinned the hem. That color is perfect, I said. Mom looked at herself from the side. It shows my stomach. You have a stomach. I don't want guests informed. Celeste met my eyes in the mirror. She had the disciplined neutrality of someone who had heard every version of this conversation. The dress looks beautiful, I said. Mom smoothed the fabric over her waist. Frank will like it. Do you like it? She paused. Yes. Then Dad can catch up. She smiled at me through the mirror. Afterward, we got coffee at a place where Mom complained about the price and then ordered whipped cream. We sat by the window. Her cane, which had apparently been hiding in the back seat, leaned against the table. Your father says you're doing too much for the dinner, she said. That's interesting. He appreciates it. Even more interesting. He does, Claire. He keeps adding things. He gets excited. You know how he is. That sentence had excused more behavior in our family than alcohol, stress, and low blood sugar combined. Mom stirred her coffee. You don't have to say yes to everything. Do you want shrimp cocktail? Her spoon stopped. I didn't ask for shrimp cocktail. Do you want the slideshow? It might be nice. Do you want 34 people? Your father, Mom. She looked out the window. I want him to enjoy it too. There it was, not selfishness, something more exhausting. She had spent 40 years accommodating Dad and had become skilled enough to make accommodation look like preference. You're allowed to want your own anniversary, I said. I do want it. What part, she thought. The restaurant, she said, the green dress, you and Ryan giving a toast. Then she smiled. And cake. I'm not noble. I reached across the table and squeezed her hand. She turned mine over and studied my nails. You need a manicure. Moment over, for the pictures. I'll wear gloves. She laughed, but kept hold of my hand. After the surgery, she said, I thought you could stay the first couple of nights, just until I'm steady. I looked at her. Not all week, she added quickly. Your father will be there. We haven't talked about this. I'm talking now. What about Ryan? He travels. He can adjust his schedule. You know his work isn't like yours. My work apparently remained a building I wandered into when family needs permitted. I have patients scheduled, I said. You don't personally clean their teeth. That isn't the only thing I do. I know that. Do you? Mom's hand slipped away from mine. The silence between us was small but sharp. I hated it instantly. I said I could take 2 days, I told her. I'll come to the pre-op appointment. We'll figure out the rest after that. Her expression cleared because she heard yes inside everything I had said. I knew we would, she said. At home, I tried to work on the toast but kept hearing her voice. You know his work isn't like yours." I opened the document and wrote the final page angry. It began as a list of all the invisible things Mom and Dad had done for each other. Packed lunches, scraped ice from windshields, stayed awake through fevers, learned which silence meant leave me alone and which meant please ask again. The anger changed as I wrote. Not disappeared, changed. I wrote that love was rarely the story a family told at a table. It was the ordinary work beneath the story, the chair carried in before anyone arrived, the plate kept warm, the note left where someone would find it. Love was showing up without needing the room to turn and watch you do it. I stopped typing. The paragraph felt too close to something I had not intended to say. I read it again, then kept going. Our parents taught us that devotion wasn't one grand decision made 40 years ago. It was thousands of small decisions, repeated until they became a life. I wrote that Ryan and I had been lucky to grow up inside the shelter of those choices. I thanked Mom and Dad for teaching us to show up, even when showing up cost more than anyone else knew. I cried when I finished it, which irritated me. I blamed exhaustion and used a paper towel because the tissues were across the room. Then I emailed the full draft to Ryan. His response arrived the next morning. "Damn, Claire Bear. That ending." I waited for more. Nothing came. Dad called an hour later. "Ryan sent me the toast," he said. I sat up in bed. I sent it to Ryan. He wanted my thoughts. Of course he did. "And?" I asked. "It's beautiful. Your mother's gonna fall apart. Good fall apart or bad fall apart? Good. Though the part about unseen work is a little serious. It's the ending. Could use one more joke. It doesn't need a joke. Maybe Ryan can add something when he reads it. When we read it." That's what I said. It was not what he said. I got out of bed and walked into the kitchen. "Did Ryan tell you how we divided the sections?" "No, but we'll sort that out." "We already sorted it. Don't get territorial. It's a family toast." I wrote it and did a terrific job. Dad's praise landed like a pat on the head. He continued before I could answer. "Ryan's voice carries better, so give him the longer sections. You know, he was always good in front of people." I looked at the open document on my laptop. My name nowhere on it because a toast wasn't supposed to need a byline. I'm good in front of people too. I know that, Claire. Everybody knows that. He said it as if being known should have been enough. The night before the dinner, Ryan canceled our rehearsal. Maya had left his apartment after an argument and he needed to go after her. "What happened?" I asked. "She says I use good intentions as store credit." "That sounds like Maya. She also says I'm going to stand up at this dinner and pretend I helped create something you did." I waited. Ryan let out a breath. "I told her it's from both of us." "Is it?" "I gave you memories. You gave me one memory Dad had already given me and 2 events you didn't witness. That's not totally fair." "No. What isn't fair is that you think reading every other paragraph makes the work half yours." He went quiet. For once, I didn't fill the silence for him. "I'll be there early tomorrow," he said finally. "We'll practice at the restaurant, I promise." When I arrived at Bellini's the next afternoon, Ryan was not there. Dad was. He stood beside the narrow podium with my printed toast in his hands, turning the pages as though he had been waiting for an opportunity to own them. "You printed it already?" I asked. Ryan did. I was bringing the clean copy. Dad squared the pages against the podium. "About that," he said. "I've been thinking. Ryan should do the toast alone," Dad said. For a second, I thought I had misunderstood him. Teresa was moving through the room behind us, directing 2 servers as they unfolded ivory tablecloths. Silverware clinked. Someone in the kitchen dropped a tray and shouted something in Italian that probably wasn't about family milestones. "What?" "Just tonight." Dad kept his voice low. "Let him have this." "Have what?" The moment I wrote. He glanced toward the open doors, checking whether Mom had arrived. "Don't start. I'm asking a question, and I'm asking you to be generous." I looked at the pages in his hands. The type was too small and the ink faded near the bottom. Ryan's home printer had apparently given up halfway through page 3. Dad had circled lines in blue pen and written slow beside the story about the kitchen flood. Where is Ryan? On his way. He promised to be early. He and Maya had a difficult night. So did I. I still found the restaurant. Dad exhaled through his nose. This is exactly what I mean. He's struggling. Maya's got him convinced he never follows through, and now he's so worried about proving her right that he can barely think straight. That logic made my neck hurt. He needs some confidence. Reading my words will give him confidence. It'll show everyone he cares. I laughed once because I couldn't help it. He could show everyone he cares by doing something. He's giving the toast. I'm giving the toast too. Claire. Dad set the pages on the podium and turned to face me fully. He was wearing the charcoal suit I had picked up from the dry cleaner because he'd forgotten it closed at 6. You don't need this. Need what? Attention. The word landed between us. I wrote it because you asked me to. And it's beautiful. You did your part. My part? You know what I mean. No, explain it. A server approached with a box of folded napkins, saw our faces, and changed direction. Dad lowered his voice another notch. Everyone in this family knows what you can do. Nobody doubts you. Ryan has spent his whole life feeling like he comes up short beside you, because you keep asking me to make sure he doesn't. That isn't fair. Neither is handing him something I made so he can look like the person you wish he was. Dad rubbed his forehead. For once, could you not turn everything into an accounting exercise? I almost admired the sentence. He had asked me to track every detail of the evening, then accused me of keeping score when I noticed one. My clean copy of the toast was in a blue folder on a nearby table. 3 pages lay clipped together inside it. The 4th was folded in my handbag. I had taken it out in the car to change sacrifice to cost, then decided the original word was too heavy and the replacement too cold. I had planned to ask Ryan what sounded better. Now Dad reached for the folder. If he's doing it alone, I said, he can use the copy he printed. The ink is bad, then he can read from his phone. Don't be childish. I stared at him. He believed childishness was refusing to solve the problem he had just created. Mom's voice floated in from the hall. Are we allowed in yet? Dad picked up the 3 clean pages before I could stop him. He smiled at me with an urgency that almost looked like fear. Please, don't ruin this for your mother. Then he walked toward the door, holding my words. Mom entered on Aunt Denise's arm, wearing the green dress and carrying the cane she had promised she would use. The room changed around her. She looked nervous, pleased, and annoyed by her own pleasure. Look at this, she said. Dad kissed her cheek. You look beautiful. So do the tablecloths. Are they white? Ivory, I said. Dad looked at me. Mom caught the look, but not its cause. Oh, fancy. Aunt Denise swept me into a perfume-heavy hug. Guests began arriving behind her. There was no time to pull Dad aside without making the evening visibly wrong. So I worked. I showed Teresa where to put the cake. I moved Uncle Paul 3 seats away from Aunt Denise because their lawnmower truce had apparently failed. I found a chair without arms for Mom's cousin Barbara, who said chairs with arms made her feel contained. When the florist delivered 1 centerpiece short, I split a large arrangement into 2 vases and turned the empty side toward the wall. Ryan arrived 14 minutes after the guests. He wore a navy suit and the expression of a man entering a room where people might already know something about him. Maya walked beside him in a rust-colored dress, her hand not quite touching his. Sorry, he whispered, kissing my cheek. Traffic? Construction on Briar? He flinched. Dad appeared before I could say more and pulled Ryan toward the podium. I've got the clean copy, he said. I marked a couple pauses. Ryan looked from him to me. We're still splitting it, right? Dad put a hand on his shoulder. I think you should take it. I thought, your sister's handled enough tonight. The sentence was designed to sound like consideration. Ryan recognized that. I saw it in the way his eyes dropped. Maya recognized it too. Claire wrote it, she said. Dad smiled. from both of them. "That isn't what I asked." "Maya," Ryan murmured. Dad's smile tightened. "We're about to sit down." He placed the 3 pages in Ryan's hand. Ryan could have handed them back. He could have said we had agreed to read together. He could have looked at me and asked what I wanted. Instead, he squared the pages and said, "Okay." That was the moment something in me went still. Not when Dad proposed it. Dad had been arranging our roles for years. But Ryan knew. Ryan had read the words in my apartment. He had watched me write while he ate my dinner. He had listened to Maya tell him exactly what taking credit would mean, and he accepted the pages anyway. "Is there another sheet?" he asked me quietly. The 4th page seemed to grow heavier inside my bag. "No," I said. It was a clean, simple lie. Ryan studied my face, then nodded as if he believed me because believing me was convenient. Dinner began. Mom loved the restaurant. That should have made me happy, and part of me was. She laughed at Aunt Denise's story about the red coat. She ate 2 helpings of eggplant parmesan after Dad had insisted she wanted chicken. The slideshow played on a monitor Teresa had found in a storage closet, and nobody mentioned that one photograph briefly showed the Hendersons' patio before I clicked past it. Ryan sat between Maya and Dad. Maya spoke politely to everyone except him. Dad kept touching Ryan's sleeve and pointing toward the podium, giving advice nobody had requested. When dessert plates were cleared, Dad stood. He thanked everyone for coming, thanked Teresa after I mouthed her name, and thanked Ryan for putting together something special. Not us. Ryan. He rose to warm applause. I kept both hands on my handbag beneath the table. He was good at first. That was almost the worst part. 40 years ago, he began, our mother stole an olive from our father's plate. Everyone laughed. Mom covered her face. Ryan knew how to hold a room. He slowed down where Dad had written slow. He let his voice catch when he described the notes on the orange juice. He looked directly at Mom while reading the line I had written about her making lean years feel abundant. Dad watched him with wet, shining eyes. Maya watched me. I stared at the half-melted icing on my plate. Then Ryan told the kitchen flood story. He described Mom dancing barefoot while Dad fought with the pipe. He said Claire and I stood on chairs and directed the cleanup like tiny foremen. I looked up. That wasn't what happened. Ryan had stood on a chair. I had spent an hour wringing towels into the bathtub. The family laughed because his version was charming. My fingers tightened around the strap of my bag. He read about Dad scraping ice from Mom's windshield and Mom knowing which silence meant leave me alone. Those were my sentences. In Ryan's voice, they sounded polished and strange, like furniture arranged inside the wrong house. He reached the bottom of page 3. Then he looked at me. His smile stayed in place, but his eyes sharpened. He lifted the sheets, checked the podium, and turned the final page over as if text might be hiding on the back. Dad made the small, circling gesture from his seat. "Keep going." Ryan looked at me again. I rested my hands on my bag. He understood. For one suspended second, I thought he might say my name. I thought he might tell everyone the ending belonged to me and ask me to come stand beside him. Instead, he set the pages down. And, that's what marriage is, I guess. He gave a small laugh. All those moments, the big ones and the small ones. A few people smiled encouragingly. Ryan reached for his glass. "Mom, I'll always remember sitting with you at St. Matthew's after Grandma got sick, and you telling me that family is the people who stay." I stopped breathing. He had never sat with her at St. Matthew's. I had. Mom's expression changed. "No, honey," she said gently. "That was Claire." The room went quiet in layers. Ryan's glass hovered above the podium. He looked at Mom, then at me. "Right," he said. "Claire. I meant she told me about it." Uncle Paul cleared his throat. Maya looked down at the table. Ryan could have lied again. I watched him decide not to. "Claire wrote the toast," he said. "Most of it. She wrote all of it, actually." Dad stood so quickly his chair scraped the floor. "Well, there you go," he said with a broad laugh. "Our family's secret weapon. Claire makes all of us sound better than we are. A few people laughed because Dad had given them permission. Then he started clapping. The room joined him. Applause rose around me for work I had not been allowed to deliver after my father had turned my erasure into a compliment. Mom stared at Dad. Ryan stepped away from the podium. I stood, lifted my bag, and walked to Mom. I kissed her cheek. "I'm sorry," she whispered. I didn't know whether she meant for the toast, the room, or for knowing immediately that the hospital memory had been mine. "You didn't do this," I said. Dad moved toward me. "Claire, don't." That word followed me through the doorway. "Don't embarrass us. Don't make it bigger. Don't leave before cake." I kept walking. Outside, the evening air smelled like rain and car exhaust. My phone began vibrating before I reached my car. I didn't look at it. I sat behind the wheel and pulled the folded final page from my handbag. The paper had softened along the crease. Love was showing up without needing the room to turn and watch you do it. I read that sentence under the parking lot lights and started laughing. It was either laugh or go back inside and tell the truth in a way nobody would ever be able to call beautiful. Ryan reached my car before I started the engine. He knocked on the passenger window with 2 fingers. I looked straight ahead. "Claire." I pressed the button. The window lowered 3 inches. "You knew the page was missing," he said. It wasn't the apology I might have waited for. "Yes. You told me there wasn't another sheet. There wasn't another sheet for you." His mouth tightened. Behind him, light spilled through Bellini's front windows. People were moving inside, shadows crossing gold curtains. Our mother's anniversary cake was being cut without me. "You let me stand up there knowing I didn't have the ending. You stood up there knowing you didn't write the beginning. Dad sprung this on me. He sprung it on both of us. Only one of us said yes." Ryan looked toward the restaurant. "I didn't exactly have time to start a family argument." "No, you saved that part for the parking lot. I was trying not to ruin their night. That's what Dad said. Because it was Mom and Dad's anniversary, Claire. Not everything has to become a referendum on our childhood. Good word. Did Maya give it to you?" He took a step back as if I had slapped him. I regretted it, but not enough to take it back. "This is what you do," he said. "You hold everything in for years, then punish people for not knowing there was a trial. I told you the toast wasn't yours. You agreed we'd read it together. And when Dad cut me out, you took the pages. You could have said something. So could you." "I did. I told everyone you wrote it. After you ran out of my words." That stopped him. Maya came through the restaurant doors with her wrap folded over one arm. She looked from Ryan to me, then down at the open car window. "Linda's asking where you are," she said to Ryan. "I'm handling this." "No," Maya said. "You're standing beside it." His shoulders dropped. "Can I get 5 minutes without you grading me? I have spent 2 years not grading you. That may have been the problem." Ryan glanced toward me, embarrassed that she had said it in front of me. That reflex, worrying about who saw the wound instead of how it got there, was so much like Dad that I almost laughed again. Maya bent slightly toward my window. "Your mom wants you to come back inside." "I can't." She nodded once. No guilt, no persuasion. "Okay." Ryan stared at her. "That's it?" She said she can't. "You were the one telling me this toast thing was wrong, and now you're going to act like her leaving is reasonable? Both things can be true. Fantastic. Everybody's very evolved." He turned and walked back toward the restaurant. Maya watched him go. "He's going to make me drive home with your Aunt Denise. Denise has mints. She has opinions. She'll give you both." That got a small smile. Then Maya's face settled. "For what it's worth, I didn't know your dad was going to do that." "I know." Ryan knew before he stood up. "I know that too." She touched the roof of my car and went back inside. My phone showed 11 missed calls by the time I pulled out of the parking lot. 4 from Dad, 3 from Ryan, 2 from Mom. 1 from Aunt Denise, and 1 from a number I didn't recognize, which was probably a relative volunteering to misunderstand me. Dad had also sent 3 messages. "Come back. Your mother is upset. Don't make this the memory she has of tonight." I stopped at a red light and read that last one twice. The memory Mom would have was apparently my departure, not Dad taking the toast or Ryan reading a hospital story that belonged to me. In my family, the injury was often less important than my refusal to cover it with a napkin. I turned my phone face down. At home, I took off the dress shoes Mom had convinced me to buy and left them in the middle of the hallway. My apartment still looked like anniversary headquarters. Empty frames leaned against the wall. Extra place cards sat in a neat stack on the counter. A shopping bag held the red and gold ribbon I had used on the favors. I stood there in my dress with my handbag still on my shoulder, surrounded by evidence of how thoroughly I had participated in a night Dad claimed I didn't need. The phone vibrated again. Mom. I let it ring until voicemail picked up. Then I took the fourth page out of my bag. There was a faint pink smear near the bottom where the paper had rubbed against my lipstick. I flattened it on the kitchen counter and read the entire page, not just the sentence that had made me laugh in the parking lot. It was sincere. That made me angrier than if it had been false. I did believe my parents had taught me how to show up. Mom had driven 3 hours to sit beside me when I had outpatient surgery at 27, then criticized my towels and cleaned my refrigerator. Dad had once fixed the same rattling window in my first apartment 4 times because the landlord wouldn't. Ryan had slept on my couch after a breakup and made pancakes the next morning using every bowl I owned. Love existed in our family. So did appetite. They loved me, and they had grown accustomed to consuming whatever I could do. I folded the page along the same crease and put it back in my handbag. The next morning, Dad called at 7:16. I answered because years of conditioning beat one night of anger by nearly an hour. "Are you awake?" he asked. "I am now." "You always wake up early." "Then why did you ask?" He ignored that. "Your mother barely slept." Guilt arrived on schedule. "How is her knee?" "Her knee is her knee." "She's upset about the dinner. Did she like the dinner?" "She loved the dinner until you walked out." I closed my eyes. "Dad, I'm not saying I handled everything perfectly." "Which part did you handle imperfectly?" "Don't do that. Name one." He sighed. "Maybe I should have discussed the toast with you earlier. You shouldn't have given it to Ryan. It was from both of you. He didn't write it. He admitted that. After he got caught, nobody got caught. The page was missing." I sat up against the headboard. "That was the only part I didn't let you take." Silence. Then his voice changed. Less angry, more businesslike. "That's actually why I called. I need the final page." I laughed. "I'm serious," he said. "Your mother wants the toast in the anniversary album. I'm putting the pictures together today. Then put in the 3 pages Ryan read. It'll look unfinished." It was unfinished. "We can fix that." "No." Another silence. Different this time. "Claire, it's for your mother. Everything is for Mom when you want me to say yes. That is a rotten thing to say. It's a true thing. I'm not asking you to rewrite the whole speech. Email me the last page and I'll print it. Whose name is going on it? It's not a published book. Whose name?" Dad made an impatient sound. I was going to label it Ryan's Toast. That's how it happened at the dinner. My feet hit the floor. He told everyone I wrote it. At the end, yes, but he delivered it. So did a FedEx driver. "You don't put his name on the package. Why are you being like this?" I walked into the kitchen, still holding the phone. My handbag sat where I had left it, the final page inside. "Because I'm tired." "Then go back to bed and send it when you wake up." "No. I'm tired of you taking something I do, handing it to Ryan and calling me selfish if I notice. I praised you in front of the whole room. You made me a secret weapon. It was a compliment. It means I do the work and somebody else gets to look armed." Dad was quiet long enough that I heard Mom ask him something in the background. Then Mom came onto the phone. "Claire?" Her voice was rough. I pictured her at the kitchen table in her robe, one hand wrapped around coffee, her bad leg extended to the side. "Hi, Mom. I'm sorry about last night." The immediate relief was humiliating. It loosened something in my chest before I could decide whether her apology meant what I needed it to mean. Then she continued, But your father worked very hard on that party. I almost looked around my apartment to see if anyone else had heard. He worked hard? You all did. That's my point. It was a beautiful night. I don't want this one awkward moment to spoil it. One awkward moment. You know what I mean. I don't think I do. I want the album to be happy. Then leave the toast out. But it was beautiful. I wrote it. I know you did, honey. Then why should it say Ryan's toast? Mom exhaled. Because he gave it. People know you helped. Helped. The word was so small. I'm not sending the page. Claire, please don't punish me because you're angry with your father. I'm not punishing you. It feels that way. Because I said no to one thing, it isn't one thing. You left before the cake. You didn't answer your phone. Aunt Denise had to help me to the car. You arrived with Aunt Denise. That's not the point. What is the point, Mom? She went silent. I could hear Dad speaking near her, too muffled to make out. Mom told him to stop. The point, she said, is that you're part of this family and people were worried. I'm part of it when I'm useful. The second I won't fix something, I'm ruining the memory. That isn't fair. No, I said, it isn't. I ended the call. My hand shook afterward, so I put the phone on the counter before I dropped it. At 9, Ryan arrived carrying half the anniversary cake in a white cardboard box. I opened the door but didn't invite him in. Mom said you left before dessert, he said. I remember. She wanted you to have some. Did she ask you to bring it? His gaze moved past me into the apartment. Does that matter? Yes. No. She asked Dad, and Dad asked me. There were the family gears, turning exactly as designed. Ryan held out the box. Can I come in? I took the cake and set it on the floor inside the door. That's not a no, he said. It's where the cake goes. Claire. What? He rubbed the back of his neck. You set me up. I stared at him. What Dad did was wrong, he added quickly. I'm not defending that. And I shouldn't have agreed. But you knew I was missing the ending. You had the full draft in your email. I didn't have my phone at the podium. You also had a mind. Everybody was looking at me. That was the moment you wanted. Not like that. No. You wanted them looking while it was going well. His face tightened. You wanted me to fail. I wanted to stop helping you succeed at being me. The sentence hung there. Ryan looked down at the cake box between us. I said you wrote it, he said, when you had nothing else to say. That isn't why. Then why didn't you say it before you started? He had no answer ready. Without one of my sentences in front of him, my brother was not nearly as good at endings. I picked up the cake and began closing the door. Claire, come on, no. It was only one syllable. It felt like learning a new language. I stood with my hand on the knob until I heard Ryan's footsteps move down the hall. Then I opened the cake box. Across the top, in looping gold icing, the bakery had written 40 years of love. The cut ran directly through love, leaving low on my half and V on whatever remained at my parents' house. I ate a corner rose with my fingers. The frosting was too sweet and the cake was perfect. My phone buzzed on the counter. Ryan, I'm sorry I took the toast. A second message followed. I still think keeping the page from me was messed up. There it was. An apology with a little emergency exit built into the side. I didn't answer. At noon, Dad sent a list. Return frames to Bellini's. Pick up leftover centerpiece from Teresa. Send Barbara the photos. Your mother needs copies for thank you cards. No greeting. No question. He had formatted each item on its own line, as if irritation improved readability. I replied, Ryan can handle those. Dad called immediately. I let it ring. He called again. I turned the phone off. The silence in my apartment felt unnatural, not peaceful. More like the hush after a power outage, when every machine stops humming and you become aware of how much noise was holding the room together. I cleaned the anniversary supplies off my dining table. The unused ribbon went into a drawer. The extra place cards went into recycling. I stacked the borrowed frames beside the front door and texted Ryan the restaurant's hours. He replied, Dad said you were doing that. I wrote, Dad was wrong. The family group chat came alive in the afternoon. Aunt Denise shared 17 photographs, including 3 of her own thumb. Uncle Paul posted a close-up of his chicken with the message, "Great night." Cousin Barbara thanked Mom for accommodating her chair needs. Dad wrote, "Despite a small misunderstanding at the end, it was a beautiful celebration of 40 years. Ryan reacted with a heart. I stared at the screen until the words blurred. Then Dad added, Claire, please send the slideshow file when you get a chance." Mom wrote, and the toast, I left the chat. For about 30 seconds, it felt magnificent. Then Mom texted me privately. Was that necessary? I put the phone in a kitchen drawer and took a shower. Monday morning, Kayla met me at the dental office with 2 voicemail slips and the cautious expression of someone transporting unstable chemicals. "Your father called," she said. "Of course he did. Twice." "Of course he did twice. He wants to know if you're still taking your mom to something Thursday." I took the slips. On the first, Kayla had written, "Mom appointment?" in large letters. On the second, "Still mom appointment." "He called your workplace to check whether you're keeping a promise?" Dr. Patel asked from behind me. He was holding a paper cup of coffee and wearing magnifying loops around his neck, which made him look like a jeweler who disapproved of everyone's molars. He believes family communication works best through receptionists. Kayla leaned toward him. "I offered to confirm she still works here. I appreciate your restraint," I said. She smiled. "I'm growing." I went into my office and texted Dad. "I am still taking Mom to her pre-op appointment Thursday. Do not call my office about personal matters." He responded before I set the phone down. "I didn't know if you were still speaking to us. Speaking and working are different things. What does that mean?" I looked through the glass wall at Kayla answering a call. She caught my eye and pointed at the phone, silently asking whether it was Dad again. I shook my head. "It means I'll attend the appointment. I am not managing Mom's entire recovery by myself. Dad's typing dots appeared, vanished, and returned. No one asked you to. I almost admired the nerve. Mom asked me to stay multiple nights. You asked me to coordinate meals and transportation last month. We were discussing options. No, you were describing my schedule to me." This time, the dots did not return. For the rest of the day, I waited for a call. The waiting was almost worse than the calls themselves. Every time the office phone rang, my shoulders rose. When nobody in my family contacted me, I started composing their arguments for them. "Mom is having surgery, Claire. This isn't the time. You're better at this. Ryan travels." I knew all their lines so well that they didn't have to say them anymore. I could maintain the whole system in an empty room. At lunch, Dr. Patel found me reorganizing a drawer of insurance forms that did not need reorganizing. "You're alphabetizing paper by emotional significance?" he asked. "Go away." He sat in the chair across from my desk. "I have a patient in 6 minutes, then use 5 wisely." "What happened?" "Family anniversary." "Did somebody get drunk?" "No." "Throw food?" "No." "Announce a secret second family?" "Nothing that interesting." I told him the short version. I expected him to laugh at the missing page. Instead, he stirred powdered creamer into his coffee and said, "Did your brother know you wrote it?" "Yes." "And he read it?" "Yes." Then he volunteered for the outcome. "That's what I said. Seems straightforward. It's not." "No. Families hate straightforward. Cuts down on meeting time." I smiled despite myself. He stood, then paused at the door. "You know you don't have to justify a day off for your mom's surgery." "I know." "You also don't have to take one." "I know that too." The annoying part was that I didn't. Thursday morning, Mom was waiting on the front step when I pulled up. She had the cane in one hand and a canvas tote stuffed with papers in the other. Dad stood behind her holding a travel mug and wearing the tan windbreaker he used for any occasion involving parking. "I thought I was taking Mom," I said through the open window. "He's coming," Mom said. Dad opened the back door. "Why are you getting in?" "It's my wife's surgery." "I didn't say you couldn't go. I asked why I'm driving." "Your car's easier for her." That was true. Dad's SUV sat higher, and Mom had trouble climbing into it. I got out and helped her settle into the passenger seat. She smelled like the lavender hand cream she kept beside the kitchen sink. When I reached for the tote, she held it tighter. I have it. Okay, I'm not helpless. I didn't say you were. Dad climbed into the back and handed me his travel mug. Cup holder's too low back here. I looked at the mug. He looked at me. I put it in the front cup holder. 3 minutes into the drive, Mom asked whether I had brought a notebook. No, I thought you'd take notes. There's paper in your tote. I brought the packet. Then Dad can take notes. Dad leaned forward between our seats. I can't write in the car. At the appointment. Oh. Mom looked out the window. I wanted to tell her I would do it. The offer rose automatically, almost reaching my mouth. Instead, I turned on the radio. The pre-op clinic smelled like coffee, disinfectant, and overheated carpet. A nurse named Sharon led us into a consultation room and handed Mom another packet. Your support person will need to stay with you for the first 24 hours, she said. Both my parents looked at me. I looked at Dad. Sharon followed the line of our attention. Will you be the primary support person? My father will, I said. Dad shifted in his chair. We're all helping. Who is staying overnight? Sharon asked. I am, he said, after a beat. Good. She'll need help getting to the bathroom, keeping track of medication, and doing the exercises in this section. Dad opened the packet. Mom's fingers tightened around the handle of her cane. Sharon explained the medication schedule, signs of infection, icing, elevation, and physical therapy. Dad wrote slowly, his block letters taking up half a line each. He asked Sharon to repeat the dosage twice. I knew the answers. I knew how to make a chart. I could already picture colored rows taped to the refrigerator, alarms labeled on Mom's phone, frozen meals stacked by date. Not doing it felt like watching someone carry a glass too close to the edge of a table. When Sharon asked if we had questions, Dad said no. I lasted 4 seconds. What if the pain medication makes her nauseated? Sharon explained. What kind of shower chair do you recommend? She showed us a picture. Should physical therapy call him or her directly? Her, unless she prefers otherwise. Mom said, Claire's better with schedules. Sharon turned to me. I'm not coordinating the schedule, I said. Please put Mom's number first, Dad's second, and my brother Ryan's third. Dad's pen stopped. Mom looked at me as if I had corrected her in public. Sharon, who had probably seen families negotiate worse beside hospital beds, wrote the numbers without reacting. Outside the clinic, Dad loaded Mom's tote into the trunk. You made that awkward, he said. I answered a question. You could have waited until we were in the car. So Mom could still list me as the contact? I don't understand why you're dragging the toast into her surgery. I'm not. The toast showed me a pattern. The surgery was already part of it. Mom stood beside the passenger door, pale beneath her makeup. Can we not do this here? She asked. Immediately, my anger collapsed into concern. Are you hurting? I'm tired. I opened the door for her. Dad said, See? This is what I'm talking about. She doesn't need stress. Then stop arguing with me in a parking lot. You started it in there. Mom closed her eyes. I waited until Dad got into the back seat, then started the car. At their house, I carried the packet to the kitchen table. Dad began unloading the pages as though paperwork could multiply if exposed to air. We need a medication chart, he said. You can make one. I thought you might have a template. I don't. You make schedules at work, not for free at home anymore. Mom lowered herself into a chair. Claire. I turned toward her. There were tears in her eyes, which felt unfair, even though I knew she hadn't put them there on purpose. I'm scared, she said. Everything in me moved toward her. I knelt beside the chair and took her hand. I know. I don't want you and your father fighting while I'm trying to do this. I don't want that either. Then can we please just go back to normal until after the surgery? Dad stood behind her, silent now, letting her ask because he knew she was the door I had never learned to keep closed. I squeezed her hand. I'll visit, I said. I'll bring food. I'll take you to one therapy appointment a week if you need me to. But I'm not staying here, and I'm not running everything. Mom blinked. A tear rolled down one cheek. "Why are you doing this now?" "Because if I wait until there's a good time to disappoint you," I said, "I'm going to spend the rest of my life waiting." Dad looked away. Mom pulled her hand from mine. On the table between us, the blank medication chart waited for somebody to fill it in. For the first time, I left it blank. Dad called before I reached the end of their street. I watched his name flash across the dashboard screen and kept driving. He called again at the stop sign. On the third call, I answered. "What? How am I supposed to know what time she takes the anti-inflammatory? The instructions are in the packet. There are 40 pages. The medication section has a yellow tab. Did you put the tab there?" "The nurse did." A pause. "Fine," he said. "Anything else?" "No." He did not apologize. I did not offer to come back. That evening, Ryan called while I was standing over my sink eating leftover anniversary cake from the box. "Dad says you quit Mom's surgery." "Did he use the word quit?" "He said you walked out and left them with a blank chart. The chart comes with instructions. That wasn't my question." "There wasn't a question." Ryan exhaled. "What are you doing, Claire?" "Eating cake." "You know what I mean. I told them what I can do. I'll visit, I'll bring food. I'll handle one therapy appointment a week. I'm not moving in or managing the whole recovery. So Dad is supposed to do everything? He's her husband. He's 67. He's not a historic landmark." Ryan ignored that. "You know he gets overwhelmed with medical stuff. So learn it with him. I have a territory meeting in Pittsburgh the week after her surgery. Move it. I can't just move a regional meeting. You told Mom my job was easier to adjust. I never said that." "She did. Same system, different spokesman." He went quiet. I scraped icing from the corner of the box with my fork. "What exactly do you want me to do?" he asked. It was the wrong question and, somehow, the right one. "I want you to read the packet. All 40 pages? There's a yellow tab. Family color, apparently. And get the shower chair. Pick up her prescriptions the day before. Take responsibility for the first physical therapy appointment. I'm in Harrisburg that morning. Then change it. Claire. Show up, Ryan." The phrase landed harder than I meant it to. I heard Maya in it. He heard her, too. "Did she call you?" he asked. "No, because we're taking a break." I put the fork down. "I'm sorry." "Are you? What does that mean?" "It means the last time the two of you talked, I was the topic and neither of you seemed especially conflicted. Maya didn't leave because of me. She left because I'm not dependable." The toast just gave her a visual aid. His laugh was brittle. "Maybe listen to her," I said. "Great, thanks." He hung up. 10 minutes later, he texted, "Where do you buy a shower chair?" I sent him the name of a medical supply store, then hated myself for knowing. Mom and I barely spoke during the next week. She texted to tell me Celeste had received compliments on the green dress, as if we were two neighbors discussing someone else's party. I asked how her knee felt. She said attached. Dad did not ask me to complete the chart again. Instead, I received occasional evidence that he was trying. A photograph of 3 pill bottles lined up on the kitchen table. "Does the red one mean morning?" he wrote. "Read the label." I did. It says twice daily. "Then why are you asking me?" "Because twice daily could mean breakfast and dinner or every 12 hours. Call the surgeon's office." A minute later, he wrote, "They said every 12 hours. Good. No thank you came, but no further question did either. Ryan bought a shower chair. He sent me a photograph of the box in his trunk. "Happy?" I replied. "This isn't for me." He reacted with a thumbs down. The evening before surgery, Mom called. "I'm not asking you to do anything," she said before hello. "Okay, I just wanted you to know I have to be at the hospital at 5:30. "I know. Your father says you don't need to come that early. Do you want me there?" A soft rustling came through the phone. She was probably in bed, smoothing the edge of the blanket the way she did when anxious. "Yes," she said, "I'll be there. You don't have to." "I know." That distinction seemed to matter to both of us. At 5:20 the next morning, Dad was standing beneath the hospital entrance awning holding Mom's tote, his travel mug, and a plastic grocery bag full of things nobody needed. Mom sat in a wheelchair beside him, wearing gray sweatpants and lipstick. "You wore lipstick for surgery?" I asked. "There will be people." Dad handed me the grocery bag. I handed it back. "What's this?" he asked. "Yours?" "I know it's mine." "Then we've solved it." Mom laughed. It was the first easy sound between us since the anniversary. Inside, a clerk put a paper bracelet around Mom's wrist. Dad answered every question half a second before she could, getting her birth month wrong once and her medication dosage wrong twice. I corrected him automatically, then caught myself. Mom caught me catching myself. "You're allowed to know things," she said. "I'm trying to ration it." "Well, don't ration my birthday." Ryan rushed into the surgical waiting area as they came to take Mom back. His hair was wet, his shirt was buttoned wrong at the cuff, and he carried a blue binder. "Made it," he said, breathing hard. Dad checked his watch. Barely, but within the category. Mom held out a hand. Ryan took it and bent to kiss her cheek. "You didn't have to come this early," she said. "Everybody keeps saying that to people they want here." She looked at me. I looked away. The nurse wheeled her through the double doors. Dad stood watching until they closed, then immediately started asking where to get coffee. Ryan held up the blue binder. I made a chart. "You made a binder," I said. "Inside the binder is a chart. Try to contain your excitement." He opened it on the waiting room table. The medication schedule was color-coded. Doses, meals, icing, and exercises were divided into rows. He had included phone numbers on the front page and put an orange star beside the surgeon's after-hours line. I stared at it. Dad said colors would help, he said. "Why is anti-nausea medication purple? Purple feels nauseated. That makes no sense. Yet you immediately remembered it." Dad returned with coffee. "The red row is morning. The red row is pain medication," Ryan and I said together. Dad looked at the chart. I knew it was something important. The surgery took a little over 2 hours. Dad paced, sat, stood, and bought 3 cups of coffee he did not finish. Ryan answered work emails and took 2 calls near the vending machines. I read the same page of a magazine until I could recite an advertisement for orthopedic sandals. When the surgeon came out and said everything had gone smoothly, Dad's face collapsed with relief so quickly that I had to look away. He hugged me first, then Ryan. For a few seconds, we were simply 3 people who loved the same woman. Mom came home the following afternoon. Dad drove his SUV because he insisted the larger vehicle would be safer. Mom needed a step stool and 2 nurses to get into it. I said nothing. Ryan had stocked their refrigerator. He bought 6 bottles of orange electrolyte drink, even though Mom hated orange flavor, 2 containers of spicy tortilla soup, and enough yogurt to support a small hotel. "Why is everything low-fat?" Mom asked from her recliner. "It's healthy. I'm recovering, not repenting. I got pudding. Sugar-free. You're difficult to shop for. I raised you. Consider us even." I brought the chicken soup she liked from the deli near my office. Dad set the container in the refrigerator without thanking me because he was busy checking the medication chart for the 4th time. I stayed through the first round of exercises. Mom gripped my hand while bending her knee and called the physical therapist a cheerful sadist. Ryan crouched near her feet, counting repetitions wrong until the therapist made him use his fingers. When the therapist left, Dad announced that Mom needed rest. Mom said, "I need a drink." All 3 of us moved. We stopped and looked at one another. Ryan reached the kitchen first. At 7, I picked up my bag. "You're leaving?" Mom asked. "I've been here 6 hours. "I know. I just thought you might stay for dinner. Dad can heat the soup." Dad glanced toward the kitchen as though the stove had recently been installed. "I can," he said. Mom's mouth tightened. I kissed her forehead. "Call the surgeon if something feels wrong." "Not me." "I know, and call me if you want to talk." She looked at me carefully. "Not if I need something?" "You can ask. I might say no. That's comforting. It's honest." Ryan walked me to the door. "I'm staying tonight," he said. I looked at him. "What about Pittsburgh? Moved it to next month." "You said you couldn't." "I said I couldn't just move it." There were emails. Tragic. He put his hands in his pockets. You don't have to look so surprised. I'm not. You are. I was. He leaned against the doorframe. Dad will handle the meds. I'll help her to the bathroom. You can go home. The words should have felt like relief. Instead, something small and mean inside me whispered that he would do it wrong, that Dad would call by 10, that Mom would ask for me. I hated that voice because it sounded less like concern than hope. Text me in the morning, I said. About what? How she did? He nodded. I can do that. I drove home with the radio off. Nobody called at 8. Nobody called at 9. At 10:30, I took my phone into the bathroom while I brushed my teeth in case I missed it. At 11:14, Ryan sent a photograph. Mom was asleep in the recliner with a blanket tucked around her. Dad slept in the chair beside her, chin against his chest. On the table, the blue binder lay open to the right page. Under the picture, Ryan wrote, "Everybody survived your absence." I typed 3 different replies and erased them all. Finally, I sent, "Good." Then I sat on the edge of my bed, staring at that one word, trying to understand why being unnecessary hurt almost as much as being used. I slept badly anyway. At 6:30, I checked my phone before my eyes were fully open. No missed calls. At 7, Ryan texted. She took meds at 6, ate toast. Dad put too much butter on it and she called him an assassin. I smiled into my pillow. Tell her I'll stop by after work. Already did. A second message came. She said, "Bring real coffee." I typed a reminder about icing after exercises, then deleted it. Ryan had the binder. Dad had the surgeon's number. They had survived one night without me. I did not need to stand outside the system tossing instructions through a window. At the office, I kept expecting my phone to ring. By lunch, I had checked it often enough that Kayla asked whether I was waiting to hear from a date. My mother had knee surgery. Oh, she considered that. A date would have been healthier. Dr. Patel passed behind her and said, "Nobody asked you. She needs truth. She needs insurance verification on room 3. Kayla walked away muttering that no one valued emotional labor. I almost followed her to explain why the phrase had offended me. Instead, I laughed. After work, I bought Mom coffee from the place she liked and stopped at my parents' house. Dad answered the door wearing sweatpants, one slipper, and the expression of a man who had been personally assigned gravity. "You're late," he said. "I didn't give you a time. Your mother asked for coffee an hour ago. Did she stop being able to drink it?" He moved aside. The living room looked lived in, not destroyed. 2 water glasses sat on the end table. A folded blanket had fallen onto the floor. The orange electrolyte drinks remained untouched in a row beside the television, glowing like traffic cones. Mom sat in the recliner with her leg elevated and an ice pack wrapped around her knee. Her hair was brushed. Someone had put lipstick within reach on the side table. "There she is," she said when she saw the cup. "My favorite." Dad looked offended. "I made you coffee. You made brown water." I followed the directions. The directions assumed judgment. I handed her the cup and kissed her forehead. "How's the pain?" Rude. "That bad?" "It's better today." Dad lifted the blue binder from the coffee table. "We're ahead on exercises." "You can't be ahead on exercises," Mom said. "They're not airline miles. We did an extra set because you counted wrong." He looked at me. Ryan set alarms on my phone. "That's good." And he called the therapist about the swelling. "That's also good." Dad seemed disappointed by my agreement. I think he had prepared for me to criticize them. So had I. Mom took a sip of coffee and closed her eyes. Perfect. I sat on the couch. For several minutes, nobody asked me to do anything. The experience was so unfamiliar that I kept looking around for the missing task. Dad brought Mom a pillow, positioned it wrong, repositioned it, and then stood there until she thanked him. He looked exhausted, also proud. "Ryan has been wonderful," Mom said. "I know. He stayed all night." "I know." He went home at 7, showered, and came back with breakfast. "That's great, Mom." Her eyes shifted to me. I'm not saying that to make a point. I didn't say you were. You said it in a tone. What tone? The one that makes a period sound like a slammed door. Dad became interested in the ice machine. I set my bag beside me. I'm glad he helped. You don't seem glad. I am glad. I'm also adjusting. To what? I nearly said to being replaced, but the sentence was too ugly to hand anyone, to things being different. Mom looked down at her coffee. Dad carried the ice machine into the kitchen. A moment later, he called, "Claire, do you know how much water goes in this?" I closed my eyes. Mom did too. "The line marked fill," I called back. "There are 2 lines. Read the label." He muttered something. Mom pressed her lips together, trying not to laugh. I laughed first. Then she did, and for a few seconds the tightness between us loosened. I stayed an hour. I did not wash the glasses. I did not fold the blanket. When Mom asked if I could take a bag of laundry downstairs, I told her Dad could do it. "You're going down that way," she said. "I'm also coming back up." She stared at me, then called, "Frank!" "What? Laundry?" A thud came from the kitchen, followed by, "Why? Because clothing gets dirty." I kissed Mom's cheek before I left. At the door, Dad said, "You could have carried the bag. I could have done everything. That isn't what anybody wants. It was working pretty well for everybody." He looked toward the living room, making sure Mom couldn't hear. "You're enjoying this," he said quietly. "Enjoying what?" "Watching us struggle." I should have denied it immediately. Instead, I thought about how often I had checked my phone, waiting for proof that they couldn't manage. "I don't know," I said. The honesty surprised both of us. Dad's face hardened. "At least you admit it." "That doesn't mean I'm coming back." I left before he could turn my guilt into employment. My first physical therapy appointment with Mom was 4 days later. She wore the red coat over loose black pants, despite the weather being too warm for it. "It makes me feel less medical," she said. "It makes you look like you're fleeing the country." Good. Maybe they'll be gentle. The therapist was not gentle. His name was Calvin, and he had an upbeat voice that made Mom suspicious. "2 more," he said while she lifted her leg. "You said that 2 lifts ago. I say it until I believe you. You're enjoying this. I went to school for it." Mom glared at him and completed both. On the drive home, she stared out the window. "You were quiet in there," she said. "He was doing his job. You usually ask questions. I didn't have any. You always have questions." I kept my eyes on the road. Dad has the packet. Ryan has the binder. Calvin gave you a schedule. I know. So what's missing? You. I tightened my hands around the wheel. I'm sitting beside you. You know what I mean. Unfortunately, I did. She continued. Your father tries, but he makes everything tense. Ryan jokes when he's nervous. You make me feel like somebody knows what's happening. That's a job, Mom. It can also be love. Not when you only feel loved if I'm doing it. She turned toward the window again. We drove 2 blocks in silence. I do miss you, she said. You see me every few days. That isn't what I mean either. Every sentence in my family had apparently developed a hidden second floor. At her house, I helped her out of the car and waited until she was steady on the cane. Dad opened the front door before we reached it. How'd she do? Ask her. He looked at Mom. She survived me, Mom said. I brought lunch, Dad told her. What? Turkey sandwiches. Real turkey or that wet kind? Dad looked wounded. There is only one kind in this house. She squeezed my arm before going inside. Stay? She asked. I have plans. Her face changed. I almost canceled plans I had not yet described. Then I stepped back. I'll call tomorrow. My plan was dinner with Nina, my closest friend since college, who had spent 15 years watching my family consume calendars. She chose a noisy Mexican place because she said serious conversations needed chips. You left the group chat? She asked after I told her about the anniversary. I left the group chat. Did trumpets sound? Only in my head. Still counts. She pushed the basket toward me. Nina had short black hair, silver hoop earrings, and the comforting inability to hide her opinions. When she disliked something, one eyebrow rose before she could stop it. "So Ryan read your speech," she said. "Frank applauded you for being invisible, and Linda wants the souvenir version. That's a harsh summary. Do you want a gentle one?" "No." "Good. I didn't prepare it. I broke a chip into smaller pieces." "The ugly part is they're doing okay," I said. "Your mom?" "All of them." Ryan made a binder. "Dad learned how to use the ice machine. Mom hasn't fallen into the sea. Nina dipped a chip into salsa. And that bothers you. I'm glad they're okay. But if Ryan can do it, why didn't he do it before? Because you did. That simple? Most bad systems are embarrassingly simple." I looked around the restaurant. At the next table, a woman was telling a man not to put his sunglasses on the chips. Ordinary life continued, indifferent to my breakthrough. "I keep waiting for them to need me," I admitted. Nina chewed, considering. "You've spent years getting paid in indispensability. I wasn't getting paid. Exactly. It was the reward. Frank praised Ryan. Linda needed you. Ryan thanked you. Everybody got a version of love they understood. And mine was being useful. Maybe." I hated the softness in her voice more than I would have hated certainty. "I love them," I said. "I know. They love me. I know that too. Then why does it feel like this? Because being needed isn't the same as being loved, but it can stand in the same place for a very long time." The server arrived with our food, forcing me to stop talking before my face did something embarrassing. I took a bite I couldn't taste. Nina waited. "What am I supposed to do?" I asked. "Let them be disappointed. That's your advice? Also order another margarita. I'm driving." "Then disappoint me." I laughed, and it came out too close to crying. "When I got home, Mom had left a voicemail. I was thinking about what you said in the car," she began. "I do miss you, not just what you do, but I also need somebody to pick up my prescription tomorrow, and your father can't find his glasses, even though they're probably on his head." I listened to the message twice. Then I called her back. "Do you miss me?" I asked. "Or do you need something?" Mom was quiet. "Both," she said. It wasn't the answer I wanted. It was the first one I believed. "I can pick up the prescription," I said, "but I need you to hear that I'm choosing to. It doesn't mean I'm back on call." "I hear you. And Dad can look for his own glasses. They were on his head." "Of course they were." Mom gave a tired laugh. "I can ask Ryan about the prescription. Didn't you already ask him?" A pause. "No." She was lying. Mom lied delicately, as though truth might bruise if handled roughly. "Mom." I mentioned it. "What did he say?" "He said he'd get it after work." "Then why are you asking me?" I didn't know if he'd remember. There it was, the quiet transfer of responsibility. Ryan was assigned the task. I was assigned making sure Ryan completed the task. "Call the pharmacy at 5, I said. "If it hasn't been picked up, call him. What if he doesn't answer? Then call me." This was how changing a family worked, apparently. Not with one brave declaration, but with tiny negotiations over a bottle of anti-inflammatory pills. At 5:15, Mom called. "Ryan picked it up," she said. "Good. He brought chocolate, too." Did the surgeon prescribe that? I believe in treating the whole person. She sounded pleased. I was pleased that she sounded pleased. The feeling held only a faint pinch. Then she added, "He forgot the stool softener. There was my opening. I could have sighed, driven to the pharmacy, and restored the natural order of things." "Tell him," I said. I did. "And?" He went back. "Good." Mom was quiet. "What?" I asked. "Nothing. It's just strange." "What is?" Having to ask twice. I nearly told her how often I had asked Ryan twice, then a third time, then done it myself. Instead, I said, "He went back." He did. That mattered. Ryan did more than go back. He took Mom to her next therapy appointment when my office had an emergency. He learned that she preferred the ice pack wrapped in a dish towel rather than the thin cover that came with it. He bought the correct coffee without asking me which one. When Dad started giving Mom instructions over the therapist, Ryan told him to stop narrating her leg. Mom reported each success as if Ryan were a bear who had learned to use a fork. I tried not to punish him for the low expectations that had benefited him. The harder part was watching Dad adjust his praise without adjusting his assumptions. At Sunday dinner, the first one Mom felt strong enough to attend at the table, Dad raised his glass of iced tea. To Ryan, he said, who has really stepped up. Ryan looked down at his plate. Mom smiled at him. He has. I had brought the casserole we were eating, driven Mom to therapy twice, and spent 3 afternoons sitting beside her while Dad ran errands. Nobody toasted me. The old anger rose so fast it embarrassed me. Then I understood what I was feeling. I didn't want another toast. I wanted Dad to have been wrong all those years he said Ryan needed encouragement, and I didn't. Watching my brother become competent threatened the arithmetic I had used to explain my life. If Ryan could show up now, maybe he always could have. If Dad could rely on him now, maybe I had never been the only option. Maybe I had simply been the easiest one. Ryan caught my eye across the table. Something in my face must have reached him. This wasn't just me, he said. Dad was cutting his chicken. Of course not. We've all helped. Claire's been taking Mom to therapy. I know that. She brought dinner. Dad gestured at the casserole. We're eating it. That's not the same as saying it. Mom looked between us. I concentrated on my peas. Hearing Ryan defend me felt good in a way I didn't trust yet. Dad put down his fork. Thank you, Claire, for the casserole. You're welcome. There. Can we eat before every contribution requires a ceremony? Ryan leaned back. You started the ceremony. Dad stared at him. For once, Ryan did not soften the sentence with a joke. The rest of dinner was polite and exhausting. Afterward, I carried my own plate to the kitchen and stopped. Dad was already filling the sink. You don't have to do that, Mom called. It's dishes, Lynn. I've seen them before. Ryan dried. He held a plate toward me. You want a job? He asked. No. Fair. I went to sit with Mom. She had moved to the living room couch, her cane propped against one knee. The anniversary album lay open on the coffee table. Dad had filled it with photographs from Bellini's. There was Mom laughing beneath the chandelier, Aunt Denise holding a wine glass, Uncle Paul standing too close to the cake. On one page, Ryan stood at the podium with my 3 sheets in his hand. Dad had written beneath it, Ryan's beautiful tribute. I stared at the caption. Mom followed my gaze. I told him to change that. He didn't. He said it's what happened. What did you say? That you wrote it? And? He said everyone knows. The same phrase, everybody knows Claire can do things, everybody knows Claire helped. Everybody knows, which meant nobody had to say it where it counted. I closed the album. Mom's hand moved toward mine, stopped, then rested on her own knee. I'm sorry, she said. You already said that. I don't think I said it right. I looked at her. She glanced toward the kitchen. Water ran in the sink. Dad and Ryan were arguing about whether casserole dishes needed to soak. I liked the toast, she said quietly. Before it went wrong, I liked hearing those stories. I meant every word. That makes it worse. Yes. Her eyes filled, but she blinked the tears back. I should have stopped your father, she said. When? At the dinner. Before Ryan stood up. I knew something was odd when you weren't beside him. You didn't know Dad had given it to him. I knew you wrote it. I knew you were supposed to read it together. I could have asked. Why didn't you? Mom looked toward the kitchen again. Because the room was happy. The answer hurt because it was honest. And when the room is happy, I said, I'm not supposed to make it true. She flinched. I wished I could take back the sentence without making it less true. Dad entered carrying a damp dish towel. What are you two whispering about? The album, Mom said. His eyes went to the closed book. I'm not changing the caption, he said. Nobody asked you, I replied. You're both looking at me. Frank, Mom said, change it. He stared at her. Not at me, at her. Why? He asked. Because Claire wrote the toast, and Ryan delivered it. It's a photograph of Ryan. Then write that. Dad's jaw shifted. "This is ridiculous." "It's a pen," Mom said. "You'll survive." Ryan appeared behind him, drying his hands on his pants. "I'll change it." Dad tossed the dish towel onto a chair. Everybody's determined to turn one nice night into a federal case. He walked upstairs. Mom reached for the album and handed it to Ryan. He crossed out Dad's caption with one straight line. Beneath it, he wrote, "Ryan reads the toast Claire wrote. The handwriting was ugly. The sentence was true." I traced the edge of the page with one finger. "Thank you," I said. Ryan nodded. Dad did not come back downstairs before I left. 2 nights later, Ryan showed up at my apartment carrying a large brown envelope. "I don't have cake," he said when I opened the door. "That improves your chances." "Can I come in?" I stepped aside. He looked around as if expecting visible evidence that my life had transformed without the family group chat. Then he set the envelope on my dining table. Inside were the toast pages. The 3 clean sheets Dad had handed him were still clipped together. Behind them was Ryan's faded copy marked in Dad's blue pen. Slow. Look at Mom. Pause for laugh. Near one paragraph, Dad had written Ryan's story even though the memory had come from me. "The final page isn't there," Ryan said. "I know where it is," I figured. He sat across from me. "Dad called me the night before the dinner," he said, "after Maya left. You told me you went after her. I did. She wouldn't talk to me, so I came home. Dad called, and we practiced. You canceled on me, then rehearsed with him? He said you'd already done your part, and I needed to get comfortable with the words. The words. I know." I touched the blue note that said, "Ryan's story." "He told me it would help with Maya," Ryan continued, "that she'd see me showing up for the family. He said you didn't care about public stuff and I needed a win. And you believed him?" "No." He looked at the table. "I wanted to." That answer was harder to dismiss. "Maya said something after the dinner," he went on. "She said the worst part wasn't reading your toast. It was how much I liked the way Dad looked at me while I did it." He swallowed. She was right. I waited. Ryan didn't ask me to reassure him. "I'm sorry," he said. "No missing page complaint attached this time. What I did was wrong." The apartment felt very quiet. "Why now?" I asked. "Because Mom needed help and you made me do it. I didn't make you. You stopped making it unnecessary." He gave a faint smile, but it disappeared quickly. "I kept thinking about that line I read," he said. "The one about love being ordinary work nobody applauds. It wasn't even on the missing page, was it? Part of it was. Of course it was." He pushed the envelope toward me. "I don't want Dad's version of the night anymore." I looked at my brother's face and saw no charm, no defense, no request hidden inside the apology. For the first time, he had brought me a mess without asking me to clean it. I picked up the clean pages and squared their edges. "Do you want coffee?" I asked. Ryan blinked. "Is that forgiveness?" "It's coffee." "I'll take it." In the kitchen, I filled the kettle while he sat at my table. Usually, silence made Ryan perform. He would read magnets off the refrigerator, comment on the weather, or ask why I owned 4 kinds of salt. This time, he let it sit. I made 2 mugs and returned. "Do you remember Grandpa's funeral?" I asked. His face shifted. "Parts. You forgot your dress shoes." He looked down. "You brought them." "I drove to your apartment, found them under your coffee table, and got back to the church before the service." "I remember. Dad said you looked sharp." Ryan wrapped both hands around his mug. "You know what I remember?" he said. "When I got fired from the software company. You told everyone you quit. Dad knew. I told him first. I hadn't known that. He said not to tell Mom until I had something else," Ryan continued. "Then he called you and had you fix my resume. He said you were looking for a change." I was. The change was not having an income. Despite myself, I smiled. Ryan did too, but only for a moment. "Dad told me not to tell you because you'd get judgmental," he said. "I would have helped." I know. That was the humiliating part. The kettle clicked as it cooled in the kitchen. Ryan rubbed his thumb across the handle of his mug. "You always knew how to do everything." "No, I didn't. You acted like you did. Because if I didn't know, Dad would sigh and do it himself like I'd failed a citizenship test. He never expected me to know. You gotta be charming instead. I know. There was no bite in his answer, which took mine away. He looked at the envelope. I liked you rescuing me. I also hated you for seeing that I needed it. That's convenient. It was terrible. I don't recommend it. I took a sip of coffee. I wanted you to fail with Mom, I said. Ryan's eyebrows rose. Not get hurt. Nothing like that. I just wanted Dad to call because the chart was wrong or you forgot something. I wanted proof that I was necessary. Were you disappointed by the binder? Deeply. Purple is a stupid color for nausea. It is not. It's a royalty color. Royalty was nauseating. Historically? Emotionally. I laughed. He leaned back, relieved but careful not to turn the conversation into victory. You weren't necessary, he said, but you were missed. Mom missed how I did things. She missed you too. You don't know that. I was there, Claire. She asked whether you'd called every 3 hours. That could still be logistics. She also complained that Dad folds towels wrong. He does. She said you fold them right. Logistics. She saved the coffee cup you brought for 2 days because your name was written on it. I looked at him. That's weird, I said. Very, but not practical. My throat tightened. I stared into my mug. Ryan changed the subject for me, which was one of the kinder things he had ever done. Maya and I are still on a break, he said. Do you want to talk about it? Not really. Then why did you bring it up? I'm learning from Mom. I smiled. He continued. She said she doesn't want a better performance. She wants to see if I change when she isn't watching. That sounds fair. It sounds exhausting. Change usually is. Look at you, 6 weeks into saying no and suddenly a philosopher. Get out of my house. He finished his coffee first. At the door, he turned back. I told Aunt Denise you wrote the whole toast. What did she say? She said she knew because I used the word devotion. That is damning. She also said Dad was wrong. What did Dad say? I didn't tell him Aunt Denise said that. Brave. I'm changing gradually. After he left, I put the marked pages inside the brown envelope and slid it into the drawer beneath my dining room linens. The final page remained in my handbag. I didn't know why I kept carrying it. Maybe because moving it into the envelope would make the incident finished. Maybe because part of me still expected Dad to reach for it. Mom graduated from the walker to her cane. Calvin, the cheerful sadist, praised her range of motion, and she accused him of trying to make her like him. Dad learned how to refill the ice machine without calling me. Ryan continued to handle the pharmacy and attended a second therapy appointment by video from a hotel room, which Mom described as very modern despite spending most of the call showing him the ceiling. I visited twice that week without bringing anything. The first time, Mom looked behind me when I entered. What? No coffee? You own coffee. I know. I was checking. We sat at the kitchen table and played cards. Dad went to the hardware store and the house became quieter when his truck left the driveway. Mom dealt me 7 cards, then dealt herself 8 and quietly put 1 back. You cheat even when we aren't keeping score, I said. I like to stay ready. Her knee was still swollen, but color had returned to her face. She wore a pale blue sweater and earrings. No lipstick. I talked to Ryan, she said. So have I. He told me about bringing you the toast pages. I looked at my cards. He shouldn't report everything. He was proud of himself. He brought me paper. He apologized. That was the harder part. Mom arranged her hand by color. Your father hasn't apologized. No, he thinks changing the album caption was an apology. He didn't change it. Ryan did. I know. I laid down a card. Mom drew from the pile. He doesn't know how to be wrong. He knows. He doesn't know how to remain in the room after admitting it. She studied me over the tops of her cards. That sounded practiced. I've had material. She placed a red 7. Your father has spent 40 years doing kind things and then using them as evidence that he can't be unkind, she said. It was the clearest description of him I had ever heard her give. "You help him," I said. "I know." The answer came so quickly that I stopped sorting my cards. Mom looked toward the empty doorway. It was easier to smooth things over. He calmed down. Ryan felt better. "You kept functioning. So everybody won. Not everybody." She drew another card she didn't need. "I told myself you were strong," she said. "I am strong." "I know. I just made it sound like strength meant you didn't bruise." We played the rest of the game without talking about it. She won, possibly through fraud. Before I left, I put the deck back in the cabinet. Mom said, "You could take the laundry upstairs?" I turned. She smiled slightly. "I wanted to see your face. You're a bad person. I'm healing." Dad's Thanksgiving message arrived the following Monday. "Since Mom can't manage dinner this year, we'll do it at Claire's. Keep it small. Just us, Denise, Paul, and Maya if she and Ryan sort themselves out." I read it twice. Then I replied, "No." Aunt Denise sent a wide-eyed emoji. Dad wrote, "No to Maya. No to having Thanksgiving at my apartment." "Why? Because I don't want to host." Mom sent, "We can order food." I wrote, "Ordering food at my apartment is still hosting." Dad called. I answered once. "It's one dinner," he said. "Then you host. Your mother can't stand in the kitchen all day. She shouldn't. You and Ryan can cook." "Ryan doesn't cook?" "Neither did you until someone let you near a stove. This isn't the time to prove a point. There's never a time you approve of." Dad lowered his voice. "Your mother wants the family together. I'll come. As a guest." "A guest? Yes. You're her daughter." "I know. You'd really sit there while she struggles. She isn't cooking. You are. I don't know how to make a turkey. Learn." He laughed without humor. "You are enjoying this." That accusation again. It must have comforted him to believe I was motivated by pleasure rather than pain. "Ask Ryan for help," I said. "What has gotten into both of you? What does Ryan have to do with this? He's suddenly got opinions about everything." He corrected the anniversary album. He told me I shouldn't have given him the toast. Now he says we can handle Thanksgiving without you. He's right. You've turned him against me. "No, Dad. He's speaking in a way you don't like. That isn't the same as being against you." "I suppose Maya taught him that." "Maybe you did." He went quiet. "You spent years telling him he was the important one," I said. "Now you're surprised he thinks his opinion matters." Dad hung up. Ryan called 5 minutes later. "I told him I'd cook," he said. "Do you cook?" "I own pans." "That wasn't my question. I can follow instructions. You proved that at the anniversary." "Too soon." I smiled despite myself. "Dad says I'm not allowed to invite Maya," he continued. "Are you two back together?" "No." "Then why would you invite her to Thanksgiving? She doesn't have plans." "That is not a reason to test a relationship in front of Aunt Denise. Denise could moderate. Denise would live stream it verbally to 6 relatives." "Good point." He sighed. "Will you come? If I'm not expected to fix it. What if the turkey is actively on fire? I'll direct you toward an extinguisher." "Generous. I can bring a pie. That's dangerously close to helping. I want pie." The word want felt important. Not should, not need to. Want. "Bring pie," he said. Dad did not contact me for 4 days. Mom did. At first, she talked about Calvin, her knee, and the terrible sugar-free pudding Ryan kept buying. Then her voice grew careful. "Do you still have the last page?" she asked. My hand went to the handbag hanging from the back of my chair. "Yes, your father thinks he remembers most of it from the draft." "The draft wasn't the same." "I know." I waited. "I don't want it for the album," she said, "and I don't want Ryan to read it." "What do you want?" "I want to hear how the toast ended." "You heard how it ended." "No," Mom said. "I heard where he ran out." Her voice shook slightly. "Will you bring it the next time you come?" I looked at the bag, at the folded piece of paper I had carried from anger into silence and back again. "I'll bring it," I said, not because she needed it, because I wanted her to hear my voice. Mom was alone when I arrived with the last page. Dad's truck was gone. His reading glasses sat on the kitchen table, which meant he had probably driven to the grocery store unable to read any labels smaller than a billboard. "Did you send him out?" I asked. He volunteered. "For what?" "Celery. Does he know what celery looks like?" "He said he does." Mom was sitting on the couch with her cane propped against the cushion. Her walker had been folded and pushed against the wall, an object already becoming part of the past. She wore lipstick this time. I sat beside her and opened my handbag. The paper was softer than it had been at Bellini's. The crease had turned white. The pink lipstick mark remained near the bottom, a small accidental signature. Mom looked at it without reaching. "I thought you might bring the whole toast," she said. "You heard the rest. I heard Ryan read it. That was the whole problem." "I know." I unfolded the page over my knee. Mom adjusted herself against the cushion. "Do you want coffee first?" "No." "Water?" "Mom, I'm nervous." "So am I." She folded her hands in her lap. I began where page 3 had ended. My voice sounded too loud in the living room. At Bellini's, there had been silverware and glasses and 34 people breathing. Here, there was only the refrigerator humming in the next room and the click of the baseboard heater. I read about the quiet work beneath a marriage. The lunches packed before dawn, ice scraped from windshields, coffee made correctly after years of making it wrong, the 1,000 repeated acts that never became stories because they happened too often and too privately for anyone to applaud. Mom stared at her hands. I read the line about love being the chair carried in before anyone arrived, the plate kept warm, the note left where someone would find it. I read that devotion was not one decision made 40 years ago, but thousands of smaller decisions, chosen again and again until they became a life. My voice broke on the final paragraph. "Ryan and I grew up inside the shelter of those choices," I read. "You taught us that showing up is not a performance. It is the work we do when the room is empty and no one is watching. Thank you for teaching us to stay, to carry, to notice, and to love, even when love costs more than anyone else knows." I raised the page. To Linda and Frank, to 40 years of showing up. The room went silent. Mom looked toward the doorway as if expecting applause from people who were not there. Then her face folded. "Oh, Claire." I set the page on my lap. She covered her mouth with one hand. Her shoulders shook once, then again. Mom cried neatly in public and helplessly in private. Tears ran through the powder beneath her eyes. I waited. "That was about you," she said. "It was about you and Dad. It was about you, too." I did not answer. Mom reached for a tissue from the box beside her. The plate kept warm. It was an image. You kept Ryan's plate warm every Sunday. That doesn't make the whole toast an attack. I didn't say it was. She wiped her eyes. "That's why it hurts." I looked down at the paper. "When you wrote that, we taught you to show up," she said. "I felt proud when I heard the beginning at the restaurant. I thought, look what kind of daughter we raised. You did raise me. But we also taught you that leaving things undone was dangerous, that if your brother forgot, you remembered. If your father overpromised, you delivered. If I didn't want to fight, you made the reason for one disappear." Her voice thickened. "And then we called that your personality." Something inside me shifted. Not healed, shifted. "I like taking care of you," I said. "I know. I liked being the one you called. I know that too. You can't apologize as if I was dragged through every day against my will. I'm not." She folded the damp tissue into smaller squares. "I'm apologizing because I knew you would say yes, and I stopped wondering what the yes cost." The sentence sat between us. Mom looked at me directly. "I asked more from you because you made asking feel safe. Ryan might forget. Your father might get defensive. You would sigh, but you would do it. And every time that worked, I did it again." I swallowed. "At the anniversary," she continued, "I knew the toast sounded like you from the first line. I knew Ryan hadn't remembered half those things. I let it happen because your father looked so proud and Ryan looked so nervous and the room was happy. Then, when it went wrong, I wanted the album fixed more than I wanted you heard. You asked me for the page the next morning. I did. You said I was punishing you. I know, that was cruel. Yes. No defense, no softening. I'm sorry, she said. Not that you were hurt. I'm sorry I helped hurt you. I looked away because her face was suddenly difficult to hold. The front door remained quiet. Dad had not returned with the celery. A car passed outside, tires whispering over damp pavement. I don't know what to do with that yet, I said. You don't have to do anything. That was new too. Mom's hand rested on the couch between us, palm down. I placed mine over it. We sat that way for a while. Can I keep the page? She asked eventually. No. She nodded. Fair. I'll make you a copy someday. Without your father's editing, especially without that. I folded the page and returned it to my bag. Dad came home with parsley. Mom made him go back. The family's Thanksgiving preparations unfolded in a series of messages I was not supposed to fix. Ryan texted me a photograph of a frozen turkey wedged into my parents' sink. Is this supposed to take 4 days to thaw? I replied, probably. He wrote, probably feels hostile. I sent him the number for the turkey hotline and then reconsidered. No, search it yourself. Too late, number acquired. Dad called to ask whether Mom's stuffing recipe used fresh sage. Ask Mom. She's asleep. Wait until she wakes up. We're at the store. Buy both. That's wasteful. Then choose. He hung up as if I had failed him. Aunt Denise asked what side dish she should bring. I told her to ask Ryan. She replied that Ryan had suggested something green, which she considered disrespectful to a woman of her experience. On Wednesday night, Mom called. I'm not asking you to do anything, she said. You've developed a strong opening. Your father bought 3 bunches of parsley. I heard. We may serve it as salad. Festive. She laughed. What time are you coming tomorrow? 3. That's what Ryan said. Good. A pause followed. I waited for the hidden request. None came. I'm glad you're coming, she said. I'm glad too. On Thanksgiving, I bought a pie from the bakery near my apartment. I could have made one. I had Mom's recipe, and the pie plate she always claimed produced the only proper crust. Instead, I paid $28 for a pecan pie and left the bakery sticker on the box. I arrived at 3 exactly. Smoke drifted from the open kitchen window. Dad opened the front door wearing an apron that said King of the Grill, even though nothing was being grilled. You're late, he said. It's 3. People are already here. Aunt Denise and Uncle Paul waved from the living room. Mom sat between them, her cane within reach and a glass of wine in her hand. We came early, Denise called. He was pacing. I was not pacing, Dad said. You checked the driveway 6 times. I was expecting my daughter. I held up the pie. Your daughter brought dessert. Store-bought? Professionally made. Ryan appeared from the kitchen wearing an oven mitt on one hand and holding a meat thermometer in the other. The turkey is either done or very angry, he said. Did you put the thermometer in the right place? I asked. His face fell. I stopped myself. You know what? I'm sure you'll figure it out. That was cold. I brought pie. That repairs some damage. The kitchen looked like a cooking show filmed during an evacuation. Celery leaves covered the counter. A pot boiled without a lid. Dad had taped Mom's handwritten stuffing recipe to a cabinet where butter had made one corner transparent. My body immediately began cataloging solutions. Move the rolls away from the burner. Lower the heat beneath the potatoes. Wipe the spilled broth before someone sets a sleeve in it. I carried the pie into the dining room instead. The table was set with 2 different patterns of plates because Dad had not counted before starting. Uncle Paul had brought a bottle of wine. Aunt Denise had brought green beans and, apparently insulted by Ryan's vagueness, Brussels sprouts too. Nobody died. Dinner was 27 minutes late. The turkey was slightly dry near the edges and perfect in the middle. The stuffing contained enough parsley to qualify as landscaping. Dad's gravy had lumps. Mom ate everything with visible satisfaction. Ryan sat across from me. He checked his phone only once and turned it face down without replying. "Maya?" I asked quietly. He nodded. "Everything okay?" "She wished me happy Thanksgiving." "That's good." She included a period. Could be fatal. I'm monitoring it. Dad began telling Uncle Paul how Ryan had managed Mom's recovery. This time, Ryan interrupted before the praise grew mythological. "Claire did 2 therapy appointments and brought food," he said. Dad's fork stopped halfway to his mouth. "I didn't say she didn't. You keep saying what I did like. I discovered medicine. You stepped up. Am I not allowed to be proud?" "You're allowed. Just be accurate." Aunt Denise became very interested in her wine. Dad looked at me. "Did you ask him to do this? To eat stuffing? To correct me all the time?" Ryan set down his fork. "She didn't ask me." "Then why are we having the same argument every week? Because you keep saying the same wrong thing." "Ryan," Mom said, not sharply, just enough to slow him. Dad pushed back from the table. "All right," he said. "Apparently we need to conduct every family meal like an awards ceremony now. Who did what? Who gets credit? Who didn't get thanked properly?" "No one asked for that," I said. "You've been asking for it since the anniversary. I asked you not to give my work to someone else, and I said I should have discussed it with you. That isn't an apology. I praised you in front of everyone." Aunt Denise whispered something to Uncle Paul. He nodded as if receiving emergency instructions. Dad turned to me. "You got applause." Ryan told the truth. The album is corrected. What exactly do you still want? The room tightened around the question. Mom placed her fork beside her plate. "I want you to understand why it was wrong," I said. "I understand you didn't like it." "That's not the same thing." "Then explain it again." Apparently the first 40 explanations missed me. "You took something I made because you thought Ryan deserved what it would make people feel about him. He needed a win." Ryan flinched. Dad saw it and kept going. He was struggling. His relationship was falling apart. "You were fine. You didn't ask if I was fine. You are always fine." "No," Mom said. Dad turned toward her. She looked pale but steady. "She is not always fine," Mom said. "We just prefer her that way." Aunt Denise lowered her wine glass. Dad's face changed, not softer, cornered. "So now everybody's against me." "This is not against you," Mom said. "It sure sounds like it." Ryan leaned forward. "I didn't need you to steal me a win. I was trying to help you. You were trying to make me look like somebody you could be proud of. I am proud of you." "Then why did I need Claire's words?" Dad stood. His napkin fell from his lap onto the floor. Nobody picked it up. "I worked for 40 years to give this family everything," he said. "I took care of all of you. I made one decision about one speech, and suddenly I'm some kind of monster." "No one called you a monster," I said. "You walked out on your mother's anniversary. You refused to help with her surgery. You made Thanksgiving into a test. I came as a guest. You're not a guest. You're my daughter. Then treat me like one." "What does that even mean?" "It means stop confusing loving me with using me." Dad stared at me. I stood and picked up my handbag. Mom's eyes went to it. She knew what was inside. Dad pointed toward the door. "There." "You're leaving again. That's your answer to everything now." "No," I said. "Leaving is what I do when staying requires me to pretend. If you walk out every time this family disappoints you, you'll spend a lot of time alone." The sentence landed exactly where he meant it to. Ryan stood too. "Dad." "No." "She wants honesty?" "There it is." My hand tightened around the bag strap. Mom reached for her cane and rose carefully from her chair. "Sit down, Lynn," Dad said. "No." The word was quiet. He looked at her as if she had spoken in a language he did not know. Mom steadied herself against the table. "You keep asking what Claire wants, but every time she tells you, you argue with the answer." Dad's face went blank. "I don't know what you want me to do," he said to me. For the first time, he sounded less angry than lost. I looked at the man who had taught me to change a tire, check the oil, balance a checkbook, and never leave a problem for somebody else. The man who had also spent years leaving Ryan's problems for me. "Tell the truth," I said, "and don't ask me to make it sound nicer." Dad looked around the table as though the truth might be written on someone else's face. Aunt Denise slowly reached for her wine. Uncle Paul studied the parsley in his stuffing. Mom remained standing, one hand on the table and the other wrapped around her cane. "Sit down," Dad said again, softer this time. "You first," she replied. He sat. Mom lowered herself into her chair. Ryan picked up Dad's fallen napkin and placed it beside his plate, not on his lap. Nobody spoke. Finally, Dad said, "I wanted Ryan to look good." It was such a plain sentence that it took a second to register. Ryan's jaw tightened. Dad stared at the tablecloth. He told me about Maya. She thought he didn't show up, and I thought if she saw him giving that toast, she'd believe he did, I said. Dad nodded. "You knew I wrote it." "Yes." "You knew Ryan hadn't." "Yes." The honesty should have felt better. It didn't. Truth arrived without anesthesia. "Did you know it would hurt me?" Dad rubbed one palm against the other. "I knew you wouldn't like it. That isn't what I asked." He raised his eyes to mine. "I knew." Mom looked down. "Then why?" I asked. "Because I thought you'd get over it." Something in my face made him stop. He continued more carefully. "You always do." The room went still again. There it was, the assumption underneath all the others. I would recover. I would understand. I would keep the evening moving. My pain had never been invisible. It had simply been considered temporary enough to spend. Dad leaned back in his chair. "When Ryan succeeds," he said, "it feels like I helped him succeed. When you succeed, it feels like you did it despite the rest of us." "That's not true. I didn't say it was reasonable." Ryan looked at him. "So you handed me her work because her competence hurt your feelings." Dad's mouth tightened. "That's not how I would phrase it." "Good thing Claire isn't writing this one," Ryan said. "Ryan," Mom warned. "No, he keeps turning it into a misunderstanding." Dad's eyes flashed. "I'm trying. You're editing." That landed. Dad looked back at me. "I like the way you made the family look," he said. "I like knowing you would handle things. And I like being proud of Ryan where people could see it." I waited. He swallowed. "I gave him the toast because I wanted the room to see what I wanted to see. I told myself, you didn't need credit. The truth is, I knew you'd do the work whether I gave it to you or not." My grip loosened on the bag. "And when I left?" I asked. "I was angry. Because I embarrassed you? Because you made it impossible to pretend I had done something kind. No one moved. Dad was not a man who cried easily. His eyes did not fill now. He looked smaller in a way that had nothing to do with tears. "I'm sorry," he said. "I took something that was yours, and I used it to make Ryan look better and myself feel better. Then I blamed you when you wouldn't help me hide it." The apology was not polished. There was no beautiful rhythm, no callback to an olive, no ending I could improve. It belonged to him. "I believe you're sorry," I said. His shoulders lowered slightly. "That doesn't put everything back." They rose again. "I know," he said. I studied him, waiting for the qualification. It didn't come. Mom reached across the table and took his hand, not to rescue him, just to hold it. Aunt Denise cleared her throat. "Paul and I can go into the living room if this is still private." "You've heard all of it," Dad said. "I have, but I'm capable of pretending." Uncle Paul nodded. "She's excellent at it." "Thank you," Denise said. The laugh moved around the table cautiously. Even Dad smiled once. I let go of my handbag and set it beside my chair. "I'm staying," I said. Dad looked at the bag, then at me. "Okay, I'm not staying because you told me to." "I know. And I'm not cleaning the kitchen." Ryan pointed toward Dad. "King of the Grill has that." Dad looked down at his apron. I hate this thing. Mom said, "You bought it." It was on sale. Dinner resumed in pieces. Uncle Paul asked Ryan about the turkey. Aunt Denise informed everyone that the green beans were better than the Brussels sprouts because she had made them with more resentment. Mom requested a second spoonful of stuffing. Dad didn't eat much, but he stayed at the table. When the plates were cleared, Ryan and Dad carried them into the kitchen. Uncle Paul helped, mostly by relocating glasses to unpredictable surfaces. Aunt Denise cut the pie and announced that professional crust had advantages. "Don't tell anyone I said that," she whispered to me. "I'll protect your reputation. I've spent years lowering expectations. Don't undo my work." The bakery pie was excellent. Dad ate 2 slices. After dessert, he reached for his glass and tapped it once with a spoon. Every muscle in my shoulders tightened. Dad saw. His spoon stopped in midair. "I thought somebody should say something," he said. Aunt Denise looked toward me automatically. So did Uncle Paul. Dad did not. He set the spoon down and asked, "Claire, do you want to?" The question was simple. No guilt inside it. No instruction dressed as praise. "Not tonight," I said. Dad nodded. "All right." Ryan stood. He had no pages in his hand. "I'll do it," he said. I raised one eyebrow. He looked at me. My own words. Relax. That instruction has never worked on me. I know. Ryan rested his fingertips against the back of his chair. "I didn't prepare anything," he began. "Promising start," Aunt Denise said. "Thank you for your support." She raised her glass. Ryan glanced at Mom. "I'm thankful Mom's knee works." "It partially works," Mom said. "Please hold corrections until the end." Dad smiled down at his plate. Ryan continued. "I'm thankful Dad learned how to make gravy." Nobody spoke. "Fine," he said. "I'm thankful he attempted gravy." "That's better," Uncle Paul said. "And I'm thankful Claire brought pie." I waited. Ryan looked at me across the table. His face lost the performance. Mostly, I'm thankful she finally stopped saving me. The room quieted. "I was mad when she did," he said. "I thought she wanted me to fail. Maybe part of her did." "Small part," I said. "Medium. Continue your toast." He smiled, but she stopped doing my part, and it turns out I had one. I should have been doing it all along. Dad looked at him. Ryan lifted his glass. "So, this is to Mom, who can bend her knee 88 degrees. 90, Mom corrected. Show off to Dad, who told the truth tonight even though it took a while. And to Claire, who wrote a much better toast than this one." Aunt Denise said, "That is objectively true." Ryan ignored her. "I'm sorry I read it," he said to me. "And I'm glad you kept the ending." My throat tightened. Everyone raised a glass. I lifted mine too. "To doing your own part," Mom said. We drank to that. The kitchen after dinner looked worse than it had before. Dad stood at the sink with his sleeves rolled up. Ryan loaded the dishwasher using a system that placed bowls face up. "They're going to fill with water," I said. He looked at me. "Are you helping or criticizing?" "Criticizing, then take it to the living room." I left the bowls alone. Aunt Denise and Uncle Paul said goodbye. Mom walked them to the door with her cane, moving slowly but without anyone grabbing her elbow. Ryan took the trash outside. That left Dad and me in the kitchen. He washed a plate and set it in the drying rack. "You don't have to stand there," he said. "I know." He scrubbed at a spot that wasn't there. "I changed the album caption," he said. Ryan changed it. I changed it again. "To what?" "Claire's Toast," read by Ryan. "That's accurate. I took out beautiful." "Why?" "Because it sounded like I was still reviewing it." I almost smiled. Dad rinsed the plate. "I don't know how to fix all of it," he said. "You can't fix all of it at once. That sounds inefficient." "There you are." He gave me a tired look. "I thought being dependable meant you were okay with being depended on," he said. "I was, until it became the only way you knew how to love me." Dad turned off the water. "I don't think that was the only way. It wasn't." He looked relieved too quickly. But it was the way you trusted most, I continued. You knew what I would do for you. You didn't always know me outside of it. Dad wiped his hands on the king of the grill apron. I'd like to, he said. It was awkward enough to be sincere. You can start by calling me without needing something. What would I say? Most people figure it out. That seems unlikely. I smiled then. He leaned against the counter. Do you still have the page? My hand moved toward my bag in the dining room. Yes. Your mother heard it? Yes. Was it different from the draft? A little. Do I get to hear it? Not tonight. He nodded. Okay. That okay mattered almost as much as the apology. I picked up one dish towel. Dad looked at it. I thought you weren't cleaning. I'm drying one plate. Why? Because I want to. I dried the plate, set it in the cabinet, and put the towel down. Then I went home. Dad called the following Tuesday. Is something wrong? I asked. No. What do you need? Nothing. I waited. He cleared his throat. Your mother says physical therapy released her to drive next week. That's great. Yes. Another pause. Anything else? I asked. I saw a woman at the grocery store wearing white boots and thought of your mother. I sat back in my office chair. Did you tell Mom? She said she never owned white boots. She's lying. I know. I have the picture. We talked for 11 minutes. Dad did not ask me to call anyone, schedule anything, return anything, or explain his phone. The next week, he called once instead of twice when I missed him. Ryan kept the blue binder after Mom no longer needed it. He said he might frame the medication chart, although I told him purple still made no medical sense. He and Maya met for coffee. He refused to tell me whether the period in her Thanksgiving text had been discussed. Mom and I returned to playing cards. She still cheated. Sometimes she asked me for favors. Sometimes I said yes. Once when I said no, she looked disappointed and asked Ryan instead. Nobody collapsed. The last page stayed in my handbag for another month. I carried it to work, the grocery store, 2 therapy appointments, and a dinner where Dad asked before assigning me the seat nearest the kitchen. The paper softened until the fold felt more like fabric than a crease. One evening, I took it out and placed it with the other pages inside the brown envelope. I did not give the envelope to Dad for the album. I did not rewrite the ending or remove the lipstick mark. I wrote my name on the front and put it in the drawer beneath my dining room linens. The toast was complete. It had simply ended in my voice.